Logitech G, Motorsport Australia, The Gamesman, OG Gear, SimSpeed TV, Speed Cafe, and the Australian Sim Racing Group.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
It's been 3 weeks since our last round. It's been 3 weeks of tinkering around with cars, the way that they react with damage, the way that they perform on the long run, and it's been 3 weeks since we've seen the Logitech Pro Invitational drivers take to a racing circuit. The big key, though, we're back. We're back at one of the historic racing circuits, and I tell you what, round number 6 from Elkhart Lake, as it used to be known, now known as Road America. IndyCar goes here. Scott McLaughlin's had a few laps of this place in his time in an IndyCar, but tonight it's V8 Supercars time, and I tell you what, Sam, man, this place, it's nearly on the same level as all the Australian tracks with the level of history, moments, and drama.
Absolutely. G'day, Scott. G'day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Absolute ripper of a race. I really enjoy this racetrack, and like you said, I think it suits our V8 Supercars because I don't think I've had too many boring races around this racetrack, and it doesn't matter what race is here, whether it be IndyCar, NASCAR, or our very own V8 Supercars. It's always a good show, and it always really puts on a good one. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see how it's all going to play out.
That's it. We talked a lot about the new damage model. This will be your first opportunity to witness it out there and in action. Watkins Glen, well, there was a lot of safety car action that went on over there, and the new damage model, it's continuing a little bit of a tinkering with it this week. It should be slightly less fragile. There should be a slight few changes to the way it interacts in terms of the way that the tyres and everything else is handling. So that'll be in the back of everyone's minds. One of the big things that's in every minds is the silly season. It's never quite done as it stands in terms of esports. There's been some more shuffling again, but it's esports, it's sim racing. That's just part and parcel of going racing these days, isn't it? A lot of changes. People need to find that group of drivers that they're comfortable with and get the most out of.
Absolutely. You see it year in, year out, isn't it? You know, you see people that gel with teams and it works really well. Sometimes you look on paper and think that's going to be a hell of a lineup. But when they actually get there and get on track and get to start to work together, sometimes it doesn't always play out. So, like you said, silly season is well underway. You're going to have a little bit of goss for us a little bit later. So that's always interesting to look forward to. And whether it be real world or sim world, it always makes a bit of a difference, doesn't it?
Let's get a little bit into some of the specifics that we're going to be going through tonight. 280 kilometers. Guess what? We are right around where endurance season gets to kick off. This is the very last round of the season before we get into our endurance races for the year. This is a tricky one in terms of it. Like I said, 280 kilometers. It's a 6-kilometer track length as well, and it's located right the way up there in the northern part of America. And Elkhart Lake, she's just a beautiful place to go car racing. 6 kilometers, 14 turns, but the key one for what looks like a very flat track on the surface, there's a lot of rise and fall around this place.
And I think that's something that makes this place a little bit unique too. There's nothing better with a racetrack with some undulation in it. And this is definitely what we've got. You know, when you go through turn 1, 2, that down through 3, 4, and 5, that downhill section, that's key into that 5 section where you're jumping on the brakes, you're trying to outbrake, you know, your competitors around you, but it's so easy to pinch a brake and run wide there. And of course, then you've got the uphill section to continue on. So really great racetrack and love that it's got some character itself.
Now, the big debate, though, Sam, and we're looking at a track map there that says 14 turns, but I can only count 12 of them. Turn 2, that's not a turn. Turn 9 and 10, well, that's kind of a NASCAR labeling for turns. So your thoughts on it? 12 turns, 14?
Yeah, look, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I'm going for 12. You know, you don't have to really work too hard through turn 2, as they call it, do you? So, no, I'm pretty much the mindset of 12 turns.
Well, it'll say 14 on the graphics here tonight. What's the race look like? Like we said, just shy of 280 kilometers, 70 meters shy is how close we are in terms of that number here tonight. 2 pit stops are going to be required. Wasn't that a big talking point when we came here last year? Somebody had it figured out in the Trans-Tasman Racing Garage. Somebody had it figured out just the right way up and down pit lane, and there was one team that failed to pick up that number. This year, change of regs, that loophole got closed. It means that you can only perform 1 compulsory pit stop under a caution, and the compulsory pit stop window opens at the end of lap number 2. We're going to be going deep in terms of this one in strategy. 280 kilometers, that means there's a lot of fuel to add into these big old heavy race cars.
Bit of funny. We've got some sneaky drivers and teams in this series and in a lot of series around the world. And of course, I guess that's their role, isn't it, as a team, to utilize that rule book and just stretch it as far as they can and find those little loopholes. And of course, it benefited for them last time. But now the officials are like, you know what, let's make it a little bit more trickier for them. And, you know, good on them. I think that's going to shave it up a little bit. Should be good.
But the key result coming in here is, what does the championship standings look like? The Lobs Esports drivers, they are coming. A little bit of change in the way that their sponsorship's going. They've moved on over to sponsorship working with Jack Doohan. Doing okay on the Lobs Esports cars. You'll see it all over it. I can tell you, Sam, man, you're in for a treat. You haven't seen these cars yet. They are very, very pretty looking in their new colours. Dylan Rudd still leads the way in terms of the championship standings. That margin at the top, down to 8 points. But here comes the chasing pack. Now it's doing okay. Lobs Esports drivers in 1st, 3rd, 4th and 5th, and have a look at the margin from Jared Filson. I tell you what, he is just on form at the moment. The biggest question I have from this field has got to be, who is going to stop him? Because right now, somebody's got to reach out and put their hand up. Because if somebody doesn't, that championship's going to go in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as difficult as it's been for Jared, it hasn't been a straightforward season. But for me as a spectator, I love it because we know he's always going to charge for the field. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. You see the leader's on 800 points and he's on 772. You know, coming into the, the Enduros that we were talking about a little bit earlier, you know, it's not too far away. And then for these guys, you know, to get themselves sitting pretty, getting towards the Enduros, of course, so much can change then. But to see the likes of Jared Filson, of course, Madison Down, who are not usually like seeing those guys down towards the field, but it does make it interesting for us as spectators.
And I'm going to make a correction to something I said a little bit earlier on. Not the last round before we get an Enduro season. There is a Monza race yet to come, and then it will be Interlagos with the extended endurance calendar. There are going to be 3 races to decide our endurance champion for 2024. Interlagos, followed by Sandown, followed by Bathurst. There'll also be a little bit of an update to the schedule for those 3 rounds. Interlagos and Sandown, both are going to be happening on a Friday night. Bathurst, of course, you can't have a Bathurst weekend and not have it be a weekend. So that'll be the weekend for that one. There'll be an update later on in the season as well about round number 11, and the season will conclude at one of the rounds that held a lot of drama last year, Spa-Francorchamps. And of course, as well, within the next month, everyone is an endurance racing fan. Spa 24 hours on the cards as well. And that you're looking at the moment, Sandman, your first peek at it. The Lobs Esports driver's new livery and one of the new drivers that's been picked up by that team. So first off, take your thoughts on the car.
I like it. I don't have to worry about saying doing okay. They are doing okay with that paint job, aren't they? That really looks really smart. So nice little change of form for them. A good time for them to get on board with Lobs Esport too, because we've talked about how strong this team has been throughout the season. So to see them there with all different artwork, and there's James Scott on screen as well. So yeah, the car looks terrific, and it's good to see a new brand inside of our series of racing.
And an opportunity as well. It's Jack Doohan, with his opportunities internationally, another big name. We've already mentioned that Van Gisbergen's in there participating with these guys. Whilst he's over in the US and doing his own NASCAR duties, he's still participating, he's still keeping up with the team. They've got so much potential, so much of a knowledge base to lean on in terms of things. Then you bring into that picture Andrew Gilliam, who's an engineer in real life. Guy works on cars, works on setups, works on all of these little bits and pieces. And Gilliam's coming to the fore a little bit as well. I got to talk to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, last year I was just looking for a couple of results when I had the time to actually put in. This year, he's had the time to invest. Have a look at the round at Jerez. Do you remember that phenomenal drive to get to 3rd place and the battle between himself and Marcelo Rivera?
It's amazing, and we are incredibly lucky, and I think a lot of us take it for granted a little bit. I'm going to put my old age hat on because I'm approaching 50, but can you imagine, for the people out there, imagine playing, I'm going to say the golden negative rule about this being a video game. Can you imagine playing a racing video game with the likes of Ayrton Senna? I mean, we know how much that we see Max Verstappen on the iRacing service as well. So to have the likes of real world race car drivers taking part now in the series or in other series on the iRacing service, that's pretty incredible. And when you think, can you imagine going back in the day and racing the likes of someone like Ayrton Senna on something like this? Mind-blowing.
We've all liked to get in those cars and go live, particularly with some of our greatest heroes. I mean, one of my earliest memories from iRacing is actually being in a session with Fernando Alonso, and he had an incident, so I get to claim for the rest of my life I beat Fernando Alonso, and that's something we've all got in the back of our minds, isn't it? We just want to get in there, get a little bit of luck and beat one of those guys one day. Well, how about the drivers up and down the field that have had some changes, and it's probably about time to start talking about what's going on. Michael Taliancic and Job Stewart, we got to talk to Job after Watkins Glen last time out. He said that there was a mechanical relationship that got kick-started with Synergy Sim Racing. Michael Taliancic was also on probation with that team. That's now been locked in. And Tally is really, really enjoying this at the moment, Sam. And he's one of those drivers that's been around for a number of years, but he's been a team leader, a team manager in charge of a whole bunch of different drivers. This is the first time we get to see Tally driving for himself and putting a lot more focus on himself. Changes the way you drive, changes the amount of time you get to put in as well.
Absolutely. I've been in that situation many years ago back in R-Factor where I used to be a team owner, and it's totally different when you switch from a team owner and someone to look after the entire team when you can just put your racing helmet on and go racing. So big switch for him. I think he'll thoroughly enjoy it, and maybe, the proof may be in the pudding come the results, over the next few months.
Yeah, that'll be the difficulty, something we'll have to keep half an eye on as well. Well, there's a lot of changes in the water. Like we said, Griffin Gardner moves from 9.5, now becomes a Lobs Esports driver. That one on screen is another one of them. Was last time out racing for the Million Motorsports outfit, no longer. Rick Kuznetsov moves back to the team before he was with Altus, and he's back with Sean McNamara. I caught up with Sean during the week, and he said, yep, I'm really, really happy to have Rick sort of come home a little bit. I'm glad he's back. I love working with Rick. He's a lovely driver. Really good guy to work with, a lot of potential in behind him, and I just want to see him back and see him doing his best, and that puts him back alongside Dylan O'Shea. So for 9.5, they lose Griffin Gardner, but they get back Rick Kuznetsov. and the shuffles that's going to be going on up and down the field. And this will be a driver that we'll be checking in with throughout things. Hayden Veld, when he started the season off, he had one goal in mind for 2024, and that was to finish 27th at Road America. Well, tonight for Hayden Veld, all the questions will get answered. Will his season be decided right here? Will he succeed in finishing precisely 27th? Will he beat that marker, or will he fall by the wayside? Sandman, your thoughts on that stat?
I love it. Good on him. He's got a goal there, 27th at Road America. But now that it's on the World Wide Web, we're going to be following that with a fine-tooth comb now, just to see how he pulls up for tonight. But good on him. It's not the stat that I was expecting. You normally hear someone say, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind a podium" or something like that. But he's just boldly put 27th. Why not?
Hey, man, I think it's setting expectations. He went, okay, so yeah, top 20, top 10. Yeah, it's probably on the cards. Well, think about Robbie Gibbs back at the start of the season. Won a race. That was probably never on his bingo card list for 2024. It would have been I'd like that to happen. It wasn't out there. Well, Hayden Veld had one goal and one goal in mind. Tonight, he'll get to decide that. But before we get there, the most important thing, and you would have seen a lot of fog in that practice session. The fog has now fallen off the circuit. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for qualifying for the Logitech Pro Invitational from Road America for 2024. And the benefit here, Sandman, after a couple of shorter tracks is we're back to a longer lap. A 2-minute lap time means that there is ample opportunity for people to find that space they're looking for.
Yeah, and I love that. And not just that, but I just love the nature of this racetrack. Having a big, fast-flowing racetrack, it does make you think about what you need to do on the night because, you know, if you get 3/4 away or you get a couple of corners into this lap and you make a mistake, it's a long trek all the way back round to pit lane, decide to put on a fresh set of boots and go again. So that really starts to become a factor for these longer racetracks when you know you've only got, you know, a 20-minute session to get the job done.
And an interesting one as well, and something we haven't actually covered off in the prep work thus far, that I think is actually very important, is the fact that it's a track with multiple different elements. We already talked about the rise and the fall of this place. Well, it's got a long corner named Turn 9 and 10, and we'll grumble and argue about that as the night progresses, I'm sure. But it's got a lot of left-hand, right-hand, 90-degree corners, a little bit akin to a street circuit. It's got a long straight, but it's got a long straight with a kink in it. So you're going to have a car that rotates really nicely. We're actually coming up to the carousel right now. This is Turn 9. And can you tell me where Turn 10 starts? Because it's somewhere about there. But long, loaded corner in the middle of the speed. So it's not a high-speed loaded corner. It's a medium-speed, long-loaded corner. Then there's the kink on the back straight. And you've got to get this right, because if you miss it and the car has a wiggle, look how close that fence is out the other side.
Yeah, that's the grass too. You get that left rear. If that thing's loaded up and you're carrying too much speed and you touch a little bit of that grass, it's so easy just to fire yourself into the fence. So that's something that no doubt everyone would have found their limits as they tested and practiced leading up to tonight. So fingers crossed we don't see any too many examples of like that come the race. But yeah, they've definitely got their work cut out for them. And just from the couple of camera angles that we've seen already, and even here on board, when you come around this last turn, look at the undulation there. Just to get to the start-finish line, you're actually climbing up a hill. So, and that's what I love about this racetrack. So many different things and different turns and different undulations. It really makes it unique.
And the pit lane entry as well, which we'll get into in the race, I'm sure. But that is not easy, pulling the car up on that uphill run. So Zach Rattray-White, it's going to be the first of our drivers here tonight to lead us out on a flying lap, and a big opportunity for him. Zach's been putting in a lot of hours. I was actually talking to him over the weekend as well, and he said, yep, look, there was a lot of focus in on other series. Monday night came, Monday night went. Tuesday night was his target night to get on the sim and pour laps in. And it was about the effort level. And what does it take to be a driver at this level? And the big thing for Zach is he's still adjusting. He's still not found, I think, his peak in terms of where he can potentially get to. But he was reckoning, I've done about 50 laps prior to the weekend, probably another 200 to 250 laps in 2 nights worth of preparation for this. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you notice that too. When people start to put in the hard yards and get some seat time, it really does pay off. You know, there's no better remedy than having seat time, you know, regardless of whether you're having a red hot go or whether you're just turning laps to work out tyre performance and stuff like that, and your duration. And then you start thinking about your setup. You know, the more time that you can get comfortable around racetracks, the more it suits everyone. So it's good to see that there's drivers in there putting in the hard yards.
and as he runs off the carousel. So he's going to sit on top of the board. The benefit of going early, you get to be number one. Was it Carlos Sainz at Monza in practice session? What position are we? We're P1, but we're the only car that's run. Yeah, but just tell me we're P1. That's all he ever wants to hear.
Let me enjoy it. That's exactly right.
New livery, a little bit of a sponsor change, a little bit of a tweak for the Vermilion cars as well, and new colours. And already the first little notification coming through from race control as well. Car 111, Teo Serrano. There was a breach of the qualifying procedure from the pit lane, and race control come back and said, yep, that's it. That's the end of your session. So for Teo Serrano, we'll be starting from the end of the field. Zach Rattray-White. What's his lap time going to be when he gets to the start-finish line? He'll be the first driver to set a time, and look at the elevation change as they run out of the last corner. And for Rattray-White, his time in practice with a 2:04.677. Track temps climbed a little bit, 2:05.615. And there was a lot of wiggling in that car that I noticed there, Sandman, early on in that lap. And they always talk about heating the tyre. I wonder whether or not he used up a little bit of rubber too early.
Yeah, quite possibly, and that's so easy to do, isn't it? So, and it's easy to get ahead of yourself. You know, you're the first car out. You're probably not judging yourself on anyone around you, obviously, because you've got some clear racetrack. So, easy to do, but the good thing for him is there's still plenty of time in the session to get back and have another red-hot go at it. And the thing that'll work in his favour too is that now that we see the likes of Jared Vilsel's put down a 2:04 along with James Scott, that'll give him a little bit of a benchmark as well. We've seen Madison Down. He's fired into pit lane and hasn't even put down a time yet. So he may have gotten off track. And actually, there's a couple of TTR cars. So I wonder if there was a little bit of strategy there, or they both just made a whoopsie themselves.
Well, it was actually Brady Myers across the start-finish line first last year, and then received a post-race penalty that removed that win from the sheet, meaning that Madison Down did actually win the race here last year, albeit not on the racetrack. We've seen that a number of times as well. Blake Warboys, this guy, I tell you what, Sam, man, he just goes about his business quietly. He just sort of never shows up. He's always lurking beneath the waters, but I think this is the best season Blake's had as well.
Not too bad, is it, though, when you can see that, you know, he's obviously getting the job done, and if you're not making too many waves and fly under the radar, sometimes that can work in your advantage too, because you get a lot of drivers that are really known in the sport, and the focus probably turns to them a little bit too much. So if you can sneak under the radar and get the job done, I reckon you can catch a few people with your pants down. So I reckon that's not a bad effort for him.
I think one of the key factors is when you look at him mechanically, who else has he got to work with? There is a little bit of engineering around him, but in terms of the WKMP outfit, they don't necessarily. Blake's about the only driver of note from that team, which makes it more difficult. You can't bounce ideas, you can't look at somebody else's data, you can't improve yourself based upon that. It's a solo effort, and that means that to make the game here and be working and be in a reasonable position from Blake's standpoint is actually more difficult than it is for other people.
Yeah, it is tricky when you don't have another driver as such to bounce those ideas off. It's easy to have sort of, you know, people in the know that, you know, may be part of a team or something. But if you've got a driver that are actually used to, you know, getting a feel for the race car and what some of those changes do, it does make it a lot easier to bounce those ideas off another driver as such. So that's a little bit tricky, but, you know, I've been in a situation too where I've been caught up in someone else's setup as such, knowing that they can drive it, but you've still got to tweak it to make it drive yourself. And point in case with the team on screen at the moment, TTR, I've been with TTR for many, many years and had the luxury of having access to Madison Down setups. And yes, he can drive them, but I need to make them a little bit different to suit my driving style. But it's like you said, it's never easy when you're by yourself.
Yeah, well, actually, I asked him that at one point on a podcast. Actually, you might have been on that podcast at some point in time as well. We got to talk a lot of different and interesting things. But the key he said was he's been approached about that a lot of times. Oh, Madison, your setups aren't really all that good. His first response always was, it's nothing to do with the setup. Trust me, we've tried and we've tried and we've tried. We've thrown different people at it. It's all in the driver's hands. You cannot... you can throw a trash setup at a good driver in this car and they will still get a lot more out of it. Because this car is all about what the driver can do and how they adjust everything that's going on with things. An interesting name, though, that we haven't talked about thus far in terms of the qualifying, jumps to the top of the session. Griffin Gardner, his first ever session with a new team and his first lap puts him to the top of the timing sheets. Now, does that ease your nerves if you're in his shoes, Sandman? Or does that maybe bring the nerves up a little bit? Because all of a sudden you look at that and you go, well, that's a good marker. I think I could do better than that.
For me, if that was me, I'd be pretty happy with that. We always talk about getting the job done and putting down a lap first, and then you can work on it through the session. If you put your first banker down and it's top of the timesheets with a brand new team, I'm be going, you know what? I've proved to these guys that, you know, I'm one of the right people for the job to be in this seat. So for me, I wouldn't get too caught up in it. I'd be just taking the advantage that, you know what, I've got the hardest part of the job done so far. So now it's time for him just to see if he can sneak and improve on it.
Well, coming out of the last corner to start, a flying lap is going to be Madison Down and this crew of cars that did not complete their first flying lap. And there was a few of them that were in this group as well, but Madison's going to be at the head of the chain. And from there, it's going to be Kurt Stenberg, Ian Ford, Ethan Griegolt, and Griegold's had a tough old year as well, which we'll talk about in a few moments. Scott Gamble with 9.5, Damien Johnson and Brenton Hobson at the back end of the field as well. And, again, you weren't here for last round, but the old article curse. Apparently I can curse hardware, Sandman, so don't ever make me say good things about you. I'll curse your hardware as well.
Wow, if I need to slip you $5 just to keep quiet, you let me know, all right? Because I do enjoy getting on the sim every now and then and doing especially some NASCAR stuff, so don't curse my hardware. But I'm looking at this stuff on screen, or one of the cars is a little bit sideways there, and see what they're doing. They're just punching themselves a little bit of an aero train here. So Madison's got the job there where he's just splitting the air for him. He's got his teammate tucked in behind him, but everyone else there is just trying to make whatever advantage he can there. There's a couple of them dropped off towards the back there, but there was a 6-7 car, you know, nose to tail draft there down the front straightaway, so it's going to prove that this racetrack is very fast, and the aero is key. And if you can sneak a little bit of a draft, that can really translate in the times.
Yeah, Ethan Griegolt, we were just talking about him. The amount of unforced errors, and that's what I'm going to say. Unforced errors is the big key. Turned in a little bit too early with only a couple laps left to run back at Watkins Glen, and broke the right front tyre off. And by the way, that sector time is set sector number 1, purple for the session. So the group of cars he's getting towed along by right now supremely good. And tell you what, comparison to Madison Down, who's in this draft train, he beats him in sector number 2. Now 0.3 of a second faster than him on the current lap. How much of that will be down to the tow, though? They've only got one more sector left to run. Everyone else is out of their way, by the way, as well, so nice and convenient. They won't have any traffic to finish this one. Ian Ford gets a whole bunch of lock-on out of the final corner, and they'll run to the line. Madison Down on his own, punching his own hole in the air. What's the time going to be like as they come to the Road America timing line? He will jump inside the top 10. Griegolt was not good in the final sector, but he will jump all the way up to the 4th spot. Phenomenal driving performance, and this is a track, Sandman. A lot of time on the sim, a lot of practice. You expect it's going to be the guys with a lot of history around this place as well.
Yeah, and look at that. How's the timing, though? You said Madison was there punching the hole. He managed a time that was 10th, but then Griegolt in 4th. So, you know, that just goes to show, you know, Madison had his work cut out for him punching that big hole there. But, you know, at the end of the day, Ethan was there able to capitalise. It was a good lap too, so let's not take that away from him. But just to have that little bit of an aero and just tuck up and take some of that slipstream, that's really, really good to have in your back pocket.
Matthew Bowler at the moment really trying to get a hurry on. Tyson Broad's the car ahead of him. New entry in the series, debuted back at Watkins Glen, picks up a little bit of a 1X as he touches the grass, cancels his qualifying lap, and that means he gets the space. Matthew Bowler thought that lap might not have been good enough, and that's why he's on the blower, trying to get him out of the way. James Scott's had a phenomenal middle sector at the moment. See if he's going to be able to improve upon this current lap. But that's how much Matthew Bowler got held up in the middle of that lap as well, just with a little bit of traffic. Veld's the car in behind him. And qualifying, we are past the halfway point. 7.5 minutes left on the clock. We are running out of time. If you've got a lap, you better get it together for James Scott. He sits second as it currently stands. Sorry, my apologies. A whole host of that train is going to jump to the pit lane because their laps have been invalidated. Scott's going to get the run off the last corner. There'll be no toe to the line, no benefit in the final sector, and I don't think he improved on that lap either. So jumps to the lane. Luke Rosella jumps to 12th with his lap in the new livery as well. And for Luke Rosella, it's been a tough old season. Managed a rear field start after penalties induced at the Red Bull Ring. He's had his pedals stop work on him, and it was the sponsor that came to the rescue for the the Doing OK Lobs outfit, as HRS jumped in to make sure that Luke Rosella had pedals to finish the season out. It's quite critical. The other side of that, Sandman, is it means he's on new hardware. There will be some adaptation to that as well.
Absolutely, and how's that for when a sponsor jumps in, and well done to HRS just for jumping in and helping him out with some pedals. But there's no better feeling though when you get some new equipment and there's some better incentive there just to jump in your rig and just get some more laps, because you're going to get used to those pedals. And there's nothing like some new feels in the sim rig. So well done to HRS for stepping in.
Now who's going to be setting a lap time, because we've got 6 minutes left in the session. There's time for maybe 2 laps, maybe if you're lucky, but there's a whole host of cars in the pit lane at the moment that are just about to run out. And in terms of things, sitting 8th on the timing line at the moment, Rick Kuznetsov did an okay job, and that's what the pit lane exit traffic looks like, as everyone trying to find a hole to feed in. And for Jake Maloney, he's now going to be at the head of the train, which is never the best place to be, but sometimes a little bit of extra downforce in the front splitter, you can make it work. Jake Burton's doing reasonably well out of 6th spot, I can tell you as well. Well, that's the reason Jake Maloney needs a little bit of clear track, is because no time on the board and 6 minutes left in quali. It's going to be a rough old session.
As well. So, that's a little bit frightening, isn't it? When you're pretty much leaving it till the last minute to get it to bank a time. That really raises the pressure. But for me, sometimes we've seen Brady Myers with no time there as well. So there's a couple of lads out there that haven't got the job done. But for me, I think if it was at a point where we're getting towards the end of the session, I wouldn't be too caught up in the aero thing. I'd love a little bit of clear racetrack just so I can see my markers, hit my racing line properly and not get too distracted by having a car in front of me. So for me, this dying part of the stage, I really don't think I'd want anyone in front of me. I'd want that clear racetrack.
Well, I tell you what, track temps actually just come up, Sandman, so we might have actually seen the best times on the board. Track temp is sitting right on 29 degrees Celsius, and a little bit earlier in the session, it was actually 27 degrees Celsius. We're actually below 28. That's got potential to be worth a couple tenths worth of a second. So that time from Griffin Gardner, that might just stand the test of this qualifying session.
Absolutely, and it's a valid point that you bring to the table, because remember we were looking at some of the times where James Scott, where he was up in his sector, that it started to fall away, and then he decided just to roll out of it and dart to pit lane. So you might be right, that could have been the perfect run. And imagine that for his first run with the new team, and he's sitting there top of the timesheets for the moment. So you'd be happy with that.
Yeah, sometimes what you get from a few drivers is a little bit, the session time changed. The racing car drivers' excuses, they tend to come out a little bit, don't they? Everyone's got about 12 of them, I reckon. 12's about the fewest I've ever heard. But at the end of the day, it was the same for everyone. You should have just got out there and got the job done early.
That's exactly right. So, what are we here? 3.5 minutes to go now. And there's pressure on a couple of these drivers. It's funny, isn't it, when we get to this point in a 20-minute session where there's some drivers that just haven't been able to bank a time. So pressure's on those guys. You don't want to be starting down the back the best of times, but if you can sort of take that situation into your own hands and put down a time, this is when they need to do it.
All right, so I'm just going to talk a number of drivers who haven't set a lap time at the moment, just to put this in the back of your mind and keep an eye out for them as they're circulating throughout here. Thomas Freeman hasn't set a time in a number of qualifying sessions this season. I expect that to be the case. It'll be from the rear of the field. Brenton Hobson, Teo Sorono cannot set a lap time. His qualifying is effectively disqualified from the qualifying session, for lack of a better term. Brian Borg, Jake Maloney, Brady Myers, Jacob O'Reilly out of A Million Sim Sports. Well, Zach Rattray White was looking really good in qualifying. He sits 13th. Teammate not with a time on the board at this point in time. And that'll be the lot of them. But only about 5 or 6 drivers down at the tail end of the field. And for Jake Maloney, gets an opportunity to get down into turn 5. Really nice and accurate at the apex. A little bit of a correction, but not as much as we've seen from a number of drivers. That was actually quite accurate down there at turn 1. That's it. That'll be from the rear of the field, because he's going to have to potentially tow from there. There isn't enough time for another lap, so Jake Maloney will be starting from the rear of the field at Road America.
You might owe Jake a beer there. I don't know if that was a little bit of commentator's curse or what the go was there, but man, you could see just that snap of oversteer, and he had to correct, and then of course that fired him into the gravel trap, and that's the dramas that we have. Unfortunately, if you don't get a time early on, we talk about how crucial it is just to bank a time. It doesn't even have to set the world on fire. Just bank a time. That's unfortunately now for him, it's session over, and he's going to have his work cut out for him for the entire night.
And thinking about Brady Myers, this is why this is so critical for him. won this race on the racetrack last year. You can't do that from 20th. There was somebody just a dipped in wheel in the grass. I don't think it was Hobbo, but it might have been the car that was just in front of him. Indeed it was. It was the 707 of Tom Freer. And Freer will know he's going to need a tow. I've got to help out Hobbo, which means he's probably going to try and finish this lap off just to give Brenton Hobson a chance. For Brady Myers, though, up 3/10 in the middle sector. That says it was quite good grip as he come to the middle sector. I think he's leading the chain, actually, as they come out of the final corner and runs up the hill to the line. Bunch of ERT cars are going to dive out of the way. Their qualifying sessions are now done. Who's got something for us? For Brenton Hobson, the run to the line. Stenberg goes through. Myers does set a time. Only good enough for 18th. Brenton Hobson gets a run to the line. Is it valid? It is valid, but it's 29th for Brenton Hobson, so he won't be happy with that one. Gamble's just come through and behind him. Robbie Gibbs I see in the background, and there's a number of drivers that are still coming out of that final corner. I think about to start a flying lap. Griffin Gardner, James Scott, it's the entire Lobs outfit that are actually on that run, and they'll be having a crack with this one for sure.
It looks like they're just starting their lap by the looks of it, so they've still got some time. We're just trying to see, but not too many people put too much pressure on that top 10 there, so yeah, I wonder if the best of the use-by date's gone on the racetrack as far as the temperature starting to go up. So, you know, look, at the end of the day, they didn't put down an absolute scorching lap, but at least they got a time on the board.
Well, there's going to be a few more seconds left in the session. There is a number of drivers that cross the start-finish line just about now. So if there's anything left in the qualifying session for them, they've got to pull it out right now. Anyone who's not started a valid qualifying lap, their session is done. But for Griffin Gardner, could this be a moment that changes his season? A change in team, a change in support staff, a change in support network, straight to the top of the timing sheets. We'll have to see if somebody else is going to be able to best him. Michael Whiting got an opportunity to talk to one of the other riders of the team here and tell us all about what he indicated was the best opportunity to get lap time and everything together. Have a look at the attitude, though, on all the cars, Sandman. I'm seeing so many cars with a lot of oversteer coming off the corners, and you don't see that at this level.
Yeah, well, goes to show just, you know, it's going to be the understatement of the year. They're all having a red-hot go in qualifying, but, you know, maybe they just haven't quite got on top of it. You know, the car's maybe just a little bit different at this stage, but, you know, come the race, who knows? But, yeah, it's one of those things. You got to fight it. But you got to be aggressive. If you're not aggressive in qualifying, you know, you can find yourself down the back of the pack, no problems.
Have a look at some of the names deeper inside that top 10 as well. So right now, Griffin Gardner from James Scott from Jared Philsell. Greek Gold sits fourth. Forzen El Nabi, he is back and with a vengeance as well. Jake Burton 6th. I can tell you, Jake Burton's done not a lot of practice this week. He was in Perth up until yesterday, so hasn't had the opportunity to sit down and get reacquainted with himself. Marcelo Rivera inside the top 10. Rick Kuznetsov inside the top 10. Madison down from Tom Freer having a phenomenal qualifying effort. Dylan Rudd, championship leader, sits 11th. Who's got some time left in the book? And for Rick Kuznetsov, I think he's out of time. I think that lap time won't be relevant to his qualifying performance whatsoever. There's a few more cars that are on track as they come out of the final corner, but I think qualifying's just about being decided. Dylan O'Shea in 29th. He will not be happy with that qualifying lap, and that is because he's going to improve on the final lap, jumps out of 29th. No, stays 29th with that lap. So an improvement on the lap time, but not the position.
Oh, that always hurts a little bit too, doesn't it? You know, you can see that you are improving on your time, but if you don't make position, it's a little bit of a kick in the guts sometimes. But hey, there's plenty of laps in this race, and you know, you never know. It's not ideal to start from towards the rear of the grid, but who knows how this is going to play out. Is it going to be carnage at turn one? Are we going to see safety cars and a little bit of fuel strategy taboo? So, you know, let's just see how it all plays out for them.
Qualifying for the 6th race of the 2024 season. We're hitting the halfway mark in terms of things, and that means that we have our 6th qualifying pole position of the season. Set to start his first race with a new team, set for his first ever session with a brand new team, puts it on pole position. Griffin Gardner will start from P number 1. Off alongside of him, though, the teammate James Scott on 2nd spot. Row number 2, though, is going to be Jared Philsell. 1, 2, and 3 for that Lobs Esports outfit. Ethan Greig Galt with the first driver, not from Lobs Esport and P number 4. We'll throw it back to row number 3, where we'll see Forzen El Nabi start off alongside of Jake Burton. Jake Burton is going to be the first of the Trans-Tasman drivers. Forzen El Nabi, the first out of Synergy Sim Racing. And here's where we start to get the teams mixed up. From here, it's going to be Marcelo Rivera off of P number 7, off alongside of Rick Kuznetsov. New team for Rick Kuznetsov. Once again, it's the old outfit. He will be the best best of the 9.5 SimSport drivers. From there, we throw it back to Madison Down and Tom Freer on row number 5. And Tom will be quite happy with that qualifying effort. Hopefully, he can keep climbing up through the order as well. Dylan Rudd will be your championship leader. He'll start out of P number 11, off alongside of Luke Rosella.
Zachary Rackway-White is in 13th and Blake Warboys in 14th. We've done a little bit of a technical issue there, but that's all right. Hopefully Scott still sticks around for the rest of the night. Ian Ford in 15th place and Robert Gidds in 16th place as we go a little bit further down the grid. A little bit tougher for these guys as the night goes on. Bo Albert in 17th and Jordan Ross in 18th. In 19th, Brady Myers, and rounding out your top 20 is Sean McNamara. So these guys will find it difficult at the start. You're going to be on that uphill section for the start line. It always gets a little bit tricky. Matthew Bowler in 21st, Adam Briggs in 22nd. In 23rd, we've got Hayden Veld and Damien Johnston in 24th. And in 25th, Michael Taliachi's got his work cut out for him back there, along with Brady Baldwin too, 25th and 26th back there for the Synergy cars. Kirk Stenberg in 27th for Trans-Tasman Racing and Luke Mitchison for Synergy Sim Racing, rounding out the 28th position. In 29th, Dylan O'Shea, and rounding out your 30 is Scott Gamble.
From here, we'll throw it back to 31st for Andre Youssef and Brenton Hobson, who will not be happy with that qualifying effort, I'm sure. Michael Whiting in 33rd and Tyson Broad with his best qualifying effort of the season. Jake Maloney will be out of 35th, did manage to get a valid lap time. My apologies. Jake Maloney is the first driver not to set a valid lap time. In alongside of him will be Thomas Freeman. From 37th and 38th will be Teo Serrano and Brian Borg. 39th will be Jacob O'Reilly, and that will be the final of our qualifying drivers for tonight's racing action. Now, it's going to be, though, time for the most important part of the evening, and that's getting an opportunity to chat to a number of our different drivers up and down the grid on our Gamesman Grid Walk. And it's the first driver we're going to get to chat to is a man that I'm probably sure has a grin from ear to ear right now. Griffin Gardner, the first part of your job is done. New team, new effort, new outing, and you stuck it on pole position. Great lap. How's the confidence levels right now?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Obviously, a good start to the night. Just got to keep a level head from here and hopefully have a good race. But fuel and draft's probably going to keep it pretty tight, so it'll be interesting.
Mate, new outfit, little bit of changing in behind the scenes. How do you think you're adapting and changing? Obviously, the lap is good to start off. That's a great first little note. But how are you adjusting to being around a new group of people?
Yeah, it's obviously a new environment, learning how the Lobs guys do things, which has been really interesting, and just getting to go back to learning off guys that have been faster than you and getting to see the data and just picking up things that I need to improve on. That's been the focus for this round, just chipping away, and obviously this is better than I thought we would start, but it's good progress.
Mate, in terms of things, 280 kilometres here tonight, 2 compulsory pit stops, a lot of fuel to be added here. What's the thing? You're obviously in charge. If you're leading when you get down to that first corner, you feel a little bit out of sync. How do you start to adjust that? Do you try and save some fuel and lead the way at the same time? Just going to go hard, try and break them? How's the tyre wear feel?
Yeah, obviously it helps having James and Jared up here with me. You get to kind of control the race from here, but obviously leading, you're going to be at a fuel disadvantage, so I just have to make up for that in the following stints if I'm still in front at turn 1. But it's a long race, just manage the pace and make sure you're there at the end.
Mate, congratulations on the pole position, mate. Go and celebrate and enjoy that one. Settle in and relax, and 280 kilometres ahead. Good luck, and hopefully we're talking to you on the other side.
Thanks very much.
Righto, ladies and gentlemen, that is Griffin Gardner out of pole position. We'll be jumping back down a little bit deeper in the pack, and we're going to have a chat to Forzen El Nabi out of 5th spot. Sam, man, I believe you're with him now.
Yes, I am, Forzen. Mate, congratulations. It's not a bad spot. P5. Obviously, everyone wants the dream front row, but P5, how's it shaping up for tonight?
Yeah, not too bad. I think that first run was pretty crucial out there, so luckily got a good lap in. So we get to start up the front. Hasn't been a good season so far, so yeah, it's more about getting the first couple turns clean, and we'll go from there.
How's prep been coming into tonight? You know, obviously when you qualify inside the top 5, that means you've probably got, you know, not a bad little rocket ship underneath you. For tonight, have you been looking forward to? Is this sort of one of the racetracks on the radar that you've been looking forward to coming to?
Yeah, we've done quite a few laps around here, like just in general, like over the years. So I think it suits guys like me. But in terms of the car and the setup and stuff, I think it all comes down to my team. So me personally, haven't had much time to jump on and do laps, but yeah, it's obviously the car that the team's put under me that's got me this position. So yeah, it's good opportunity, and yeah, we'll see how we go.
One last question before I let you focus for the night. How you approach the start? You obviously don't want to give away too much, but have you got a little bit of a playbook in mind as far as how you might approach the start and then maybe heading towards that first pit stop?
Yeah, I'd say I'll be more on the fuel save side. So first few laps, try and get in good rhythm. I know Jake behind will be pretty hungry, but we'll try and keep him quiet and we'll go from there. We'll try and manage our own race.
All right, all the best. Thanks for talking to us, Forzan. Appreciate it, and hopefully we're talking to you a little bit later on the podium. That'd be nice.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, mate. That's Forzan El Nabi on the Gamesman Grid Walk. And Scott, you've had to take a little bit further a walk down the back there, and you've caught up with Adam Briggs.
Mate, Adam Briggs, obviously not jumping out of your skin to be starting a little bit deeper in the pack that you would have hoped, mate. But we just spoke to Forzan. How's the confidence levels in and around the team at the moment? I know you guys at Synergy Sim Racing normally very, very relaxed, a lot of laughs going around. It's very hard to ruffle your guys' feathers.
Yeah, look, the guys are doing pretty well, and I've probably had a pretty ordinary qualifying here, but a lot of the team have some better qualifying than me. They got Jordan Ross in 18th, and then you've got Tom Freer in 10th, and also Forzan, who you just spoke to as well. So the set's okay, the set's good. I'll just try and keep out of the chaos and move forward, and that'll be that.
Mate, how's the adaptation go? Because there's a lot being spoken about the new damage model in the cars. It adds a lot of a new element to the racing, but I think the biggest thing that changes is not necessarily the racing itself, it's the racecraft. It's how you judge the risk levels in everything that goes on during a race, and ultimately for a lot of guys at some points in time, the stuff that happens that you can't really worry about, it's not your fault, you just get wound up in it. How does that change over the last couple of weeks for you guys?
I don't think it changes much at all, to be honest. The aim of the game is you can't win if you're crashing, so you try not to crash, and that's the same whether it's this damage model or the previous damage model. It doesn't seem, side impacts don't seem to make as much straight line difference, which is great because they probably shouldn't in the first place. But all in all, the aim generalistically is exactly the same. Don't get involved in other people's crashes and business, essentially.
In terms of fuel strategy tonight, how are you feeling? Got a number in mind? You know exactly what about lap number you want to go pit if it goes green? How much thinking goes in the safety cars that go on as well?
I think a lot of people do a little bit of read and react on that. There'll be a lot of people trying to stay in the train. So I think a lot of people will be basing their fuel numbers off staying with a group of people, if that makes sense. So it'll be the brave person who pits early and goes off key with an entire group of people, unless there's people going with him. So yeah, look out for that to happen. If you see the brave soul who pits by himself with no one around him to play draft buddy, he's a brave individual, and it'll either pay dividends or it won't. So.
All right, mate. Well, best of luck. Get out there, have some fun, and thanks for chatting to us on the Gamesman Grid Walk.
You're most welcome. Have a good evening.
Always love chatting to Briggs. He's a polite fella. He's got a little bit of humour in him when you get him alone and you get him chatting away from a webcam is the big thing I'd say about him. He's a funny guy to talk to, isn't he?
And always good, obviously there's always a little bit of nerves for everyone. At the start of a race, you don't know how the start's going to play out. You don't want to do anything silly or get caught up in anything silly. So, yeah, he's good to chat to and good to see he's so calm.
Righto, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know who you guys are going to pick now for your race winner. We're about to have a little bit of a debate we're about to have a think about who we think is going to win this race, but I also want to hear from every one of our fans around the chat. There's been so many changes go on in the last month in terms of the supercar field. Sandman, have you had some time to think about it? Do you think it's going to be that 93 machine?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with his teammate in 94. How hard is it to go past Jared Filsell? He's in a league of his own at the moment.
I'm going to back Griffin in. I think he's out of position in terms of strategy. I think he put a lot in that, but I'm going to back him in. I think he's got a chance to win this one tonight. Well, ladies and gents, we are going to find out after 279 kilometres and 93 metres. We are going to find ourselves a race winner. 279 kilometres and 930 metres. My apologies. There's 70 metres shy. We are. That's 180th kilometre. The revs are going to start to rise from Road America. We have got 43 laps to bring us to conclusion. And Griffin Gardner stalled the car off the grid. He's gone backwards straight away. And Marcelo Rivera's had a huge incident with him, so it hasn't lasted very long at all. There's now going to be a scramble in the pack. The 088 machine leads us down to turn number 1, and it did not take long at all for the drama, the trials, and the tribulations to kick off.
Oh, that could have been an absolute monumental disaster for the whole field, but thankfully they've managed to get away. A little bit of contact, just didn't quite get the start. Whether he bogged it down, whether he stalled it, we didn't quite see, but unfortunately just didn't get the start he needed, and it's just going to put him on the back foot at the moment.
And the big key is how much damage did that do to Marcelo Rivera? That could be race impacting for him. He could be in a world of trouble, or he could be okay. We're just not going to know. And that new damage model, well, Marcelo Rivera's now had a piece of it. When they get down to turn 5, there's a few dive bombs throughout the pack. It's just about 2 by 2 by 2 as they get down in here. It's this next corner when they crest the hill, though. You need to about sort it out when you get to the crest of the hill. Then it starts to snake out, single file out, and the opportunities to start to make your way throughout the field. Ethan Greek-Goltz had a reasonable getaway, slots himself in a P3. It was going to be James Scott from Jared Filsell and Forza Nabi, Jake Burton round out your top 5. But how about Madison down 9th on the grid? He sits 6th.
Yeah, capitalise on that, but oh man, isn't that heartbreaking when there's a bit of a start line drama there? Sometimes you're just in the wrong position at the wrong time. You can have absolutely nothing to do with it, and we're just hoping that there's not too much damage to either car, especially Marcelo. If he went into the tail of him, that could be crucial. Exactly what we've just been talking about with the new damage model. So, wow, it'd be interesting to see just what happened to the start there. That's not often we see a huge start line drama like that, but thankfully, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. It was being right at the front of the field, that could have involved so many more cars.
Well, we didn't wait long to get into the original Game of Gear replay, and that's it. It lurched, it stalled, it lurched. He managed to clutch kick. I don't know how he restarted that car, but what I have heard already, and an update on this one coming out of Evolution Racing Team, the straight line speed on the 21 machine is just about gone. He is going to be a sitting duck in a straight line. He's just going to be drafted past. He's going to have to push on a lot harder than he necessarily wants to. Look at that hit. That's a monstrous hit.
Yeah, he zigged when he should have zagged. It's just one of those, but it's easy when you're sitting on top of the roof cam and you know exactly how it's going to play out. Different story when you're in the cockpit and the nerves are there and you don't know what's going to happen. So it was definitely not intentional. It was just really, really bad luck. And to lose that straight line speed, that's going to be absolutely murderous for him.
Well, Griffin Gardner led off the start-finish line. He sits 10th now, so a little bit of work for him to do. He's lost 9 spots. Zach Rattray-White actually just in behind him. And Blake Warboys dives it down the inside of Luke Rosella. A little bit of hip and shoulder. Doesn't quite get that move done. Now Rosella's going to get the drive up the hill underneath the Corvette bridge at turn 6. And Rosella tries to go the wrong way around. Now it'll become the inside when they get to turn number 7. Still not done. Now it's finally done. And are they going to be able to settle back in? It's Robbie Gibbs we're right on board with now. We're down in 14th. And here goes Warboys once again. Slides it back down the inside. So he is on a mission. Blake Warboys gets that one done. And that took a long time to resolve itself.
Yeah, that was cool. I love that braking zone manoeuvre if you can get the job done up the inside. Thankfully, both drivers gave each other a little bit of take. Max Verstappen would probably read a little bit out of that playbook. But at the end of the day, they both got through there and they can both push on. That was a good, nice, clean move.
Now, what's the games look like up at the front of the field? Because if you're Jared Filsell, you might be your teammate in front of you, but I guarantee you, he'll probably not be wanting to lead the way. Remember back to Jerez, that overtake coming out of the pit lane? That was supreme. What about Ethan Greek-Goltz? How close can he stay to the front end of this battle pack as well? And Forza Nabi has been out of it for a little bit of a while. We haven't seen the best out of the Synergy Sim Racing driver. Tonight, for Forzan, represents an opportunity. Remember him in the fight back at Sebring at the start of the season as well.
Well, look who looks racy behind him too. That's Jake Burton. You touched on that Jake didn't get a lot of time in the sim leading up to this one. So to be sitting P5 at the moment here on the end of lap 2, I reckon he'd be pretty happy with the moment because he's actually right in touch and looking quite pacey. He's actually going to put a move here up the inside of Forzan. Gets the job done, and you know what? Forzan's just going to go, you know what? Let you go. See you go. I'll now duck in and stay behind the draft there and just save what fuel I can. And I reckon that's exactly what Jared's mindset is to save fuel.
Another replay is going to tell us something that's happened a little bit deeper in the pack. Is that Jake Maloney? It is, and Michael Taliancic that are going side by side as they run down the carousel. Brilliant fighting between these guys. And remember, for Maloney, no qualifying lap set in, so he's having to charge through the field. Taliancic gets it back at the middle of the corner, but it's the good old Chris Croft. And now the run to the kink, side by side at the kink at Road America. Tally elects to hang it out and around the outside and on the grass as well.
Wow, lucky. We spoke of that in quali about how easy it is just to run wide there. He kicked it off the concrete though. Thankfully, he's now able to push on. He has lost a couple of spots from it, but thankfully he's still got a straight race car as this battle goes on in the replay. How good was that?
You just think, did he fight that a little bit harder than he needed to? As soon as the car was to his inside, you get to the kink and you're on the outside, you go, I'm not going to hang it around the outside of the kink. That never works.
Yeah, it's easy from the commentary box though, isn't it? When you've got the red mist going and you're trying to battle with someone and you've got fresh tyres underneath you, you try to have that red hot go. But yeah, unfortunately, hindsight says that he should have probably given it up a little bit. But the car's still straight, and that's what he's got in his back pocket.
Yeah, well, now he's let Andre Youssef, Tyson Broad and Scott Gamble through on him. So there's the next 3 cars as we keep half an eye in on Forza and El Nabi. And I tell you what, Jake Burton's squeezed himself up into Ethan Creek Gold as well. Have a look at James Scott as he's actually starting to really skip clear out in front. And Jared Filsell's nearly lost the draft on these guys as well. And this race, this has got a little bit of something in it. This has got a little bit of something, because if you remember back to last year, fuel games were played and drama all kicked off at Road America at the penultimate round. It meant a lot to the championship. It meant so much to how the series evolved. And this time around, it's going to mean a lot more because none of these guys are in the lead of the championship. They're all hunting down Dylan Rudd, and the bump draft actually comes through. Burton's going to dive to the inside. He's pinned Ethan Greek Gold in behind Jared Filsell. Burton is not hanging around. There is pace in that Trans-Tasman racing machine. But you just wonder, is it early run pace and he might fade a little bit later with the aggression he's showing now?
Yeah, well, I think that's what we're seeing from Jared. I think Jared's just taking his time. He's not worried about James Scott. James might be pushing a little bit harder than Jared wants to, and he's causing this little bit of a train here from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. But Jake Burton, he showed pace from the drop of the clean flag, so whether he can see that Jared's just taking his time, he may be keen. Yeah, he's making a move. He's keen to get the job done and start pushing on himself. So good to see the battle there. A little bit of give and take. Nice job. Looks like Burton's going to get the inside move here up the inside. And he'll clear Jared, but then it's like a little bit of a train too because someone's there following through. Jared hasn't given up though. Look at him go. He's still going to fight him though. Oh, he's going to hold on to the outside, and now it's going to be back to the inside for Jake Burton.
And the big thing I noticed when I was watching in behind them, there's a little bit of brake pinching, there's a little bit of running. Burton's running right and out off the track. That'll be a difficult one to call because there was a little bit of them both in it. Yes, Burton was deep in on the brakes, but I reckon Filsell might have turned in a little bit as well. And the other thing that's gone through the back of my mind is I've just seen Jared Filsell pinch front brakes a couple times on this lap. It's all about preserving your tyres in these cars. We have got a very, very long way to go in this motor race, and you do not want to be putting heat in those front tyres early. Well, Burton's going to move himself in a second spot. And I tell you what, how was Greek Gold lurching up on the back of them as well? Psychologically, he was thinking about it.
Filsell got the move there on down 2. They're going to still fight it out. But in that replay, you could see that Jared was hard on the brakes because the discs were glowing. So he was having a red hot go there. So, but you know who's loving this? It's James Scott. He looks at his mirror and goes, you know what? I could cruise a little bit here, boys. I got myself 2.5 seconds up my sleeve.
Well, it's all starting to kick off in the early phases of this race. This is the rundown at turn number 5. And keep your eye on the 94 machine. No, sorry, my apologies. That's later in the lap. That's down at turn 8, and that's the contact. Yeah. And I think Burton's missed the apex there and run a little bit wide.
Yeah, stewards might want to just have a little look at that. But then, again, we'll leave that up to them. So there was a little bit of door-to-door action there. Oh, and the battle still hasn't stopped here between Down and Filsell. So Filsell got the job done on Down, and now Down's got him back. So these guys are getting quite racy here. And Rick says, oh, he's not going to try 2 for 1. He pulls it up, doesn't make contact. It was a nice, clean move, but, man, that got Jared's attention.
Well, and now they're all draft trained on the right-hand side. Driver's right-hand side of the road. Now it's all going to split out. It's 2 by 2 as they run through. Dylan Rudd senses an opportunity. And think about things from Dylan Rudd's perspective. He's leading the championship. So any positions he finishes ahead of Jared Filsell is gains that he's making in the championship. The teammates go side by side down at turn number 5. And Road America caused a bunch of drama, caused a bunch of things that started to burn up last year. And I just wonder if 2 years in a row, this track might start to decide the championship in the back half of this year.
Absolutely. The track hasn't let us down in previous years, and it's definitely not done tonight so far. It's only lap 5, and so much has played out. People are making moves that, maybe are a little bit early, but the nature of this racetrack is that you just really want to stay in touch with everyone, and I guess there's a little bit of nose to tail for the entire field there, but James Scott's got himself that little bit of clear air, and he just starts to focus on his own race now, because he doesn't have to worry about sort of the pressure that he's got from behind. He can conserve fuel, roll out of it, look after his tyres, and then he just hears on the radio about all this kerfuffle that's going back. Not long ago, it was Jared Filsell almost thinking about making a move on James Scott. Jared's now finds himself back in 7th.
And think about that for Jared Filsell as well. If he'd never made that move, if he'd have been a little bit aggressive, it would have been on a teammate, but he'd be out of this. It would be James Scott dealing with that. Now he's got to refocus. Now he's got to resettle, and the best drivers will always tend to do that one as well. Something else I was hearing when they were side by side was a lot of fuel. So even though they were fighting each other, that clutch was getting engaged. They were trying to save every skerrick of fuel they possibly can. So they might be fighting hard, but there is some strategy games that's being played in the background as well. Look at that margin, though. Look at that margin for James Scott. And this changes the script. We were talking to a few drivers. They said there might be some fuel saving. Filsell dives it back down the inside of Forza El Nabi, who's gotten a little bit out of sequence in this one as well. So El Nabi now back to 7th. But this changes the game, because if somebody's going clear and they're going hard, they might be able to clear the margin that covers up for that fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just watching that with Filsell, we said that he's got that one spot. I think he's just going to want to just maybe pick off another couple more, and then he might be quite content just to sort of run. Thankfully, it's his teammate that's up the front there, but it's not going all Jared's way. He's got a fair bit of pressure here in the early stages, where I guess in the opening start, we maybe thought that a lot of these people might have been taking it easy, looking after fuel, getting themselves into a bit of a run, but it doesn't seem to be that way at this stage.
Racing car drivers, you stop them from battling. I dare you. Adam Briggs is going to get a little bit of
wide.
Dylan O'Shea and Bo Albert are making contact. Dylan O'Shea is sideways, and Briggs is going to get collected in it as well.
He's gone.
Round he goes at the 72 machine. He said, I started a little bit further down in the pack, and now that's what happens when you get back there and you get amongst the chaos. You could sense that was happening. There's more blocking going on as well. It's not resolved itself. And back here, from about 20th on backwards, it's still all kicking off. Another car in the grass as well.
Mate, they are not worried about showing each other the grass, are they? Just elbows out at the moment. And that was a chain reaction accident that we saw just underneath the bridge. Victim of circumstances, but it could have got a lot uglier. When that car went across the racetrack, I thought there could have been about 3 or 4 other cars heavily involved. Thankfully, they all got away to tell the story.
Oh, man, you just don't want to be back here. All of a sudden, I kind of want to be up in the freedom of James Scott's got at the moment, kicking away, feeling quite comfortable. Hayden Veld, though, sits 23rd, harasses Jake Maloney, and we're going to get a replay of this because there was so much that went on in it. There's the bump drafting going on, the drafting games. Then it's Dylan O'Shea who fires it to the inside. He was looking the nose a little bit 3 wide on Adam Briggs. Round the outside goes Bell Albert, and it's Matthew Bulba that was involved in that one as well. So Briggsy tries to clear himself. Then they get 3 wide, and then O'Shea tries to come back.
Joining the racetrack, that's when I thought there was going to be 3 or 4 more cars more involved. But, man, unreal. Just, a little bit of nose to tail there underneath the bridge. It unsettled him, and unfortunately it turned into a disaster.
Yeah, well, there's more in that. Scott Gamble slices down the inside of Brady Baldwin. And maybe they might still... I want to say they're going to start taking a little bit of a breath, but I don't think that's going to happen by any stretch of the imagination. In the meantime, though, Bo Albert's got a little bit of space around him, and I tell you what, Griffin Gardner's woes have continued. So we said Marcelo Rivera was struggling from a little bit of straight line speed. Griffin Gardner's back to 19th. And how's this battle a little bit further up the field as well as Kuznetsov having a real go, and that was Forza El Nabi having to go back at him.
Yeah, see, Filsell got the job done there on Rick Kuznetsov, but then locked a tyre there, and he was lucky not to bowl a wide there because I thought he was just going to pinch out a little bit too long and that was going to cost him, but thankfully he managed to get off the pedal and pull the car up. So holding on to 5th now, and I think what he wants now is just have himself a little bit of clear air, and thankfully that's what he's got between him and Madison Down now. So you'd like to think that these drivers will start to settle into a little bit of a rhythm as we start thinking about the first round of pit stops.
Well, it's really interesting because all of this kicked off because Jake Burton said, I'm going to harass these guys. They're going to fuel save a little bit. I'm just going to put some pressure on them. And that's when the cracks started to come through, wasn't it? A lot of these guys will look to that and go, I'd like to save some fuel here. I just want to give myself a fuel position. And Jake Burton said, nah, we'll have none of that. No, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like, isn't it, that, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Sometimes it's easier for guys just to be a little bit of aggressive at the start and then fuel save a little bit later, where there's other guys that want to fuel save from the start and then, be aggressive later. So, Jake saw his options there and he decided to push on with them. And now he just finds himself with a little bit of clear air. He can see what the leader's doing. And now they can start thinking about what their fuel strategy is and when they want to pit. They don't have to worry about, having to be caught up in so much traffic. They can almost start to see and plan out how the race is going to go as far as first round of pit stops.
Really interesting number here, by the way. Fastest lap of the race currently belongs to Madison Down, 2:06.080. His last lap is 2:07.083. So he's fallen off by 1 second and 0.03 of a second in terms of his lap time. That's what the tyre fall off looks like after 7 completed laps as they start their 8th circuit of this racetrack. So second in the tank in terms of those tyres starting to fall off. I was having a look at the numbers. They do wear reasonably quickly around here, but it is a longer racetrack as well.
Yeah, a longer racetrack, it's a fast racetrack too, and some of the corners, that we joked about with the corners that have too many numbers in them, like they're a high load corner where you're going to be using a little bit of tyre there through there too, so that will, play things out a little bit. So you move up here the inside, nice and clean, on exit, give each other a little bit of racing room, that's what I like to see. And then under the bridge, this is where it gets tricky into this tight right-hander. This is tighter than it actually looks. I've noticed that when I've done laps around here, you think it's probably a little bit more open than it really is, but it really tightens up on you. So really mindful when you've got a couple of cars side by side coming into that part of the racetrack.
And the other car we sort of need to keep half an eye on. Have a look at the damage actually to the front end of Bo Albert's machines. That'll be compromising his speed just a little bit. Won't have the downforce that I think necessarily he would like to have at this point in time. But like we heard earlier on from Marcelo Rivera, straight line speed's gone out of that car. So he hasn't got the greatest car necessarily underneath him at the moment. But Griffin Gardner's fallen further than Marcelo Rivera has. So they're both definitely impacted, given that when they started the race and settled themselves after those opening few laps, they were both in and around the top 10. They are falling through the field.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking too, isn't it? When you've got that straight line disadvantage, it's totally on your hands. You're just sort of sitting there and you're mashing that throttle as hard as you can, and she ain't going any faster just because of the aero damage. But thankfully, he's still going. So, that's the key to take away from it, is that you can bank points. They might not be as many points as what you'd hope at the start of the night, but as we've seen, the way these championships play out, any points is better than no points.
Probably worth a little bit of a check-in with our original Game and Gear hard charger at some point as well, which was Luke Rosella after the last round. So the 55 machine in tonight's racing action, don't forget last time out, had to start from the rear of the field due to penalty points accrued at the Red Bull Ring, and he's just not had it as the greatest season that he's ever had. Started 12th, 6th, 12th. He's in behind Blake Warboys at the moment, so for Luke Rosella, things aren't looking too bad. He's starting to recover from a shaky start of the season.
Yeah, and looking at tonight's, for the moment, he's in touch with that lead group. So being that it's only lap 9, without stating the obvious, there's still a long way to go, and you just don't know how it's going to play out. So what he needs to do is exactly what he's doing. Is just stay in touch with everyone. He's got a straight race car, and just see how the rest of it plays out.
Yeah, and there's some few incidents that are having a bit of a look in at the moment. They're sort of coming through. The incident between O'Shea, Bo Albert, and Adam Briggs that we did see. Race Control looked at that and gone, there's probably a little bit... This is my take on it. And there's a little bit of all three involved in that one. No one's supremely at fault, and therefore they've not touched that one, which I kind of like. It was... I think that's the right decision on that one. They've all had a little bit of their own part to play.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, hats off to the stewards. We appreciate everything they do for our sport. It doesn't matter what series they're in. It's never the easiest job in the world, but I think you're right. At the end of the day, everyone probably had their thumb in the pie, so it's play on now.
Righto, so who's impressed you thus far? Like I said, Blake Warboys is having another reasonable night at the office, a quiet night. But how about Zach Rattray White as well? And, we talked about him. And this is a guy who's still adjusting to the car, and he's really starting to come to terms with things. Sits inside the top 10 as we currently stand. This would be his first ever top 10 performance, and that green machine, they stick out now, the vermilion machines, don't they?
That's what sponsors want. It's a great looking race car on the screen, and that's what your sponsors want. You can see that race car, but like you said, inside the top 10, that's no mean feat. I don't care what anyone says. These drivers, we think that these guys are the best of the best in Australian sim racing for supercars, and to be inside that top 10, mate, that's something that I couldn't do. So my hat's off to him, and at the moment he's just seeing how it's all playing out. He's not doing anything silly, staying in touch with that group, and then who knows what's going to happen from here on in.
Mate, we'll throw you in a NASCAR, then you'll show everyone what you're really capable of.
Yeah, I'll burn the front tyres off and stick them on the fence real quick.
Marcelo Rivera starting to recover in a little bit of pace as he gets right up and underneath the rear wing of Jordan Ross, though. Jordan Ross has managed to just climb his way into 15th spot. Going to pick that one off of him, and then it's Team Boss actually over at 9.5 Sim Sports. Sean McNamara is having a reasonable outing as it currently stands. Sits 17th on the road with Marcelo Rivera just in front of him. Ian Ford actually is a little bit of a return to form for Ian Ford. He's got a little bit quiet over probably the last 6 months. Best I've seen him drive in a little while.
Yeah. Obviously, we'd love to see him up a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, he's there or thereabouts. And I was going to touch on that. We touched on that damage with Marcelo. What I think is good for him at the moment is that he's tucked in behind. He's getting that little bit of a sniff behind Jordan Ross. So yes, he's hurting with straight line speed, but if you can have a race car that's in front of you just breaking that air, I guess it's not as painful as what it could be if you're just rattling around by yourself.
And now we start to get into the fun middle section of the race, and I know we're both watching the Formula 1 over the weekend, and boy was that exciting to keep an eye on. But this is where the guys who play chess really start to get their smarts on, and they do it with both their left, right foot and the hands in front of them that turn the steering wheel as well. If you've saved a little bit of tyre in this early phase of the race, Sandman, are you thinking about going long, or are you thinking about undercutting, getting yourself out of one of these packs? Because that pack about 18th to the rest of the field is a horde of Hornets.
Yeah, I guess it all comes down to your track position, isn't it? You can see the move here up the front straight away. But if you've got that little bit of an advantage, they're almost going to think about going 3 wide, not quite. So Dylan O'Shea's managed to get the job done. Maloney's going to come through as well. So that puts the 93 back just 2 more spots. But for me, it's all about track position. You touched on how the pace has dropped away with fresh tyres to older tyres, where the cars can be out there and can be over a second a lap quicker. That could bite you. But if you've got yourself a little bit of a margin like what James Scott has got, you can afford to maybe go that lap or 2 longer. But it all comes down to how your car's behaving and what sort of battle pack you find yourself in.
I'll tell you what, back up at the front of the field, by the way, as we're keeping half an eye on everything that's going on, up across the original Game of Gear replay for more of the racing action. And Tyson Broad slices down the inside of Kurt Stenberg. So that's the Senny check-in done, and then Tyson Broad bowls himself a wide. And instead of gaining 1 spot, he's lost about 7 or 8.
Oh, that's a kick in the guts, isn't it? You think you got the move done, you're going, how good's this? And then the brake pedal starts to go a bit long and you run out of corner and then you run a wide. So never mind, he can still push on, straight race car, but it's always a kick in the guts.
It's okay, Tyson. When you watch this one back, that's what me driving a supercar looks like about everywhere.
And mine's in the fence, so you're doing way better than me.
You always sit down and you always wonder where would you actually rank. I don't drive the supercar, so I can say things like that. I'd be somewhere in that field, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, no, never going to happen. But interesting to note, something I'll throw in the back of your mind as well. I think Griffin Gardner's hanging around out there. I think he's hanging for a safety car. Now, if you're in Griffin's shoes and a pit stop comes up and you jump into the lane and there's only about 15-20 seconds worth of repair, do you just take it? Because if it happens in the next 5 or so laps and you're a second lap faster, well, you're going to make that back by the end of the race.
Yeah, look, it's catch-22, isn't it? If you find your night's gone pear-shaped and you're not really, you've got that little bit of a disadvantage, then why not? Fire down the pit lane and get what jobs you can get done. You obviously have a lot of time in the pit lane because the racetrack is so long. So you'll be able to get a lot of damage fixed, as we'll see. It's Bo Albert. He's decided to hit pit lane. Lap 12 of 43, but definitely I'd be in there and just fixing what damage I could if it was under yellow.
Well, Michael Whiting will be jumping in early because he wants to get himself out of that queue. He can sense he's probably got some pace to burn, and lap times are still falling off by about... We're heading towards that second and a half margin now as the times start to really fall away. But for Bo Albert, there was damage to that front. The front end of that car was pushed in just a little bit. Blake Warboys dives down the inside, so he's picked himself up another spot, and the ascent through the field is going to continue. Tom Free has also managed to make a spot up on this lap as well. So Zach Rattray-White, the pace in that car is starting to fall away a little bit from him, and he'll fall back outside the top 10 for the first time since lap number 1. So, you know, now it is starting to show, everyone's starting to show their cards a little bit. So Zach Rattray-White, this is where the experienced drivers, and even you would say from a NASCAR perspective, this is where even Formula One perspective, have a look at Oscar Piastri is a perfect example of this. Where the experienced guys make their time is out-and-out lap speed. Generally, everyone's quite good at hanging on to the tyre.
Yeah, well, Daniel Ricciardo hasn't done much this year, but, you know, part and parcel to the race car that he's been given as well. But he's been known to be able to hold on to old tyres, as you know, sometimes better than some of the people around him. So, speaking of gaps and margins, James Scott to Jake Burton. Jake Burton's now got that margin down to 1.7 seconds. So that was creeping out to well over 3 seconds at one stage there. So whether that's just at a point where Jake's like, you know what, I'm probably pitting soon. I'm just going to use up whatever tyre I've got and just push on and see what I can get. Or, you know, is James Scott now decided to save a little bit more fuel, and now he just finds himself just drifting back into Jake? It's just interesting to see how this is playing out.
What's interesting, and the other interesting thing about all of this is, out of this front group of guys, Scott's probably the guy that's going to pit first. If you have a look at the trends across the course of the season, TTR run long, ERT are about in the middle, and probably a lap earlier than the ERT drivers as the Lobs guys generally. Particularly the guys up the front. If you have a look at Bowler, Veld, 40, all of those ERT drivers, you see Marcelo Rivera get overtaken by Ian Ford actually at this point in time. They tend to come a little bit early because they're in a pack and they want to differentiate themselves and want to go for a little bit of an undercut. But Ethan's been maybe about right in the middle. He's gone longer than the Lobs guys, I think, on most occasions.
I love that drivers and teams do mix up the strategy, because there's nothing worse than follow the leader. I mean, sometimes we find that sometimes the race strategy is everyone has to pit at lap 23 and then again at 42 and something like that. Often we will see a trend like that. But when we get to racetracks where there's a little bit of diversity and someone can do something different, that's what we want to see. We want to see teams roll the dice and actually get that little bit of a gain on that extra fresher tyre, depending on who they're racing against. Sometimes that can make out for really good racing.
And don't forget, we've still got a TBA round on the calendar as well. It's not locked in for anything as this battle pack continues to rage the 900 machine. And it's not all settled and sorted out at this point in time, as Andre Youssef was battling away with Griffin Gardner as he's fallen to 24th now from pole position. And Damien Johnson was the car that got by him. Scott Gamble's going to line him up and have a go here in a few moments as well. So it's not over. And Gamble's starting to really harass Andre Youssef as well. So it's certainly not over for Griffin Gardner, but he's fallen a long, long way and not done yet. I think that fall is probably going to be to the back end of this pack in a couple laps' time as well.
You might be turning into a six-pack for you, I think, buddy. But, mate, unfortunately, put the muggers on him at the start, and it's just gone pear-shaped for him. We were so pumped for him too, you know, to be able to get that result, you know, with the team and everything else. And unfortunately, we've seen it so many times throughout the many years of sim racing. You know, I can think of the time that Madison Down did it on a start-finish straight and unfortunately caused a massive accident. You know, there's so many drivers that happens for, unfortunately, and tonight it was his turn.
Luke Mitchinson's going to be one of the first drivers to dive to the lane, and there's going to be Brady Baldwin who comes in out of that pack as well. So that's going to trigger the first round of stops. We have just finished 13 laps when they start the start-finish straight, cross the start-finish line this time by, and not quite a third of the race distance, just shy of that one actually in terms of a third. But there's only a couple drivers that have pit thus far. Whiting was Bo Albert and Michael Whiting were amongst them. And Stenberg's in the lane now as well, but Kurt Stenberg has some damage towards the tail end. But how good is this climb, though, from Jake Maloney? As he moves his way up into 19th position as it currently stands. So his next target will be Marcelo Rivera. Started for Jake Maloney 35th, currently 16 spots gained on the racetrack.
The only downside for him, it looks like the stewards have got him a 5-second penalty too. So As he had contact with Bowler, so he's going to have to serve that possibly in the lane too. So that's the only check mark against his run at the moment. But like you said, it's good that he's actually getting these positions done. Car looks good, but unfortunately he's got that 5-second penalty hanging over his head.
Yeah, it's tough for Jake because he wants to get out there and wants to go racing as well. Back up in that lead pack, Jake Burton, I tell you what, 1.2 seconds now he is behind James Scott. So we are going to see a battle for this lead in the next couple of laps. Does he crack into that draft and then just dive in the lane?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. If Jake's keen to go longer, it depends how he feels behind him. If he catches him pretty quickly and thinks he's got a little bit of pace, then yes, you dive straight to the lane, get on some new tyres, and that fresh tyre advantage will leapfrog him over James Scott. So it depends on how he feels and how quickly he approaches it. We've seen that margin, like we touched on before, drop from just outside of 3 seconds. So to be 1.2 now, he's definitely there or thereabouts. So it'll be playing on his mind, and I guess it comes down to, we'll see another couple of cars driving to the pit lane, but it depends on how much fuel he's got in the tank and if he can go longer.
Well, I can tell you, I just went and had a look at what the RPMs were like at the back end of the straight based upon the in-car dashes. James Scott breathed the throttle a little bit at the end of the race. It wasn't a full-on lift, but it was a breathe of the throttle, probably about 20 or 30% out of that throttle at the end of the start-finish straight. I can tell you, Madison down, no lift at all.
Yeah, it's a good habit to get into if you find yourself. It's one thing I was never able to do is go fast. Well, I couldn't go fast full stop, but to go fast and save fuel at the same time, that was definitely something that I could not do. That was a real knack. So for these guys to be able to do that, still be pushing on and saving fuel at the same time, I take my hats off to them. But how's the freight train behind though? You know, Jake Burton, Ethan Grigg-Galt, Madison Down, Jared Filsell, Rick Kuznetsov, they're all just there, just waiting to pounce, and they all know that pit stops are just around the corner.
Now, and that chasing group, it's now got Rick Kuznetsov that's just off the back of it in 6th spot. He's just in that draft at this point in time for Rick Kuznetsov as well. Forza Elnabi, Dylan Rudd, these guys are gone. And then there's a little bit of a gap back to Tom Freer, who's having one of his better nights of the season thus far. Blake Woodward continues that charge to 10th spot and still looking ahead. And for James Scott, 1.2 seconds. Now that we've sort of gotten to this marker, it's sort of stabilising a little bit. It's like Burton's running down there and going, no, I'm happy. I'm just about there. I'm not receiving too much dirty air at this point in time.
That or James is like, all right, I've saved a fair chunk possibly. I've got him in close. I don't want to get him in too close, and it's nice to have maybe a little bit of margin up your sleeve coming into the pit stops, because we're probably going to see some differences as far as stationary time too, so that's going to play a bit of part, because that swings and roundabouts when it comes round for the second lot of pit stops anyway. But no one out of that front group has decided to peel off this time, as we finished lap 15 of 43. So I'd love to be in the mindset of some of these teams just to see how they're travelling, what's their fuel like, what's their tyre life like, and how far away from pit stops. There's so much to play out.
So drivers that have pit thus far sit 33rd on the racetrack. It's the first of them. Bo Albert, although I don't think he's filled that car. I think he's taken a really short stop in terms of things. He was about 6 seconds quicker through the lane than Luke Mitchinson. Brady Baldwin was about 2 seconds longer than him again, and Michael Whiting actually matched Brady Baldwin in terms of things. So everyone's changing the amount of fuel that they're adding to these cars. And have a look at the battle as well between Michael Whiting, who's now got Damien Johnson crawling all over the rear end of him. Johnson's just been through the lane. Michael Whiting's got a few laps on these tyres. These guys are going to go side by side, but it's not even a straight this section of the track. Down a Canada corner at the back end of the lap. Turn number 12 gets to the inside. Michael Whiting didn't fight that one too hard.
Yeah, you can see he was getting set up that whole way through that corner. So that was a good little run. Heads up racing by those guys. Gave each other plenty of room. And we've got another car that's in the lane now, about to join the racetrack.
So Brenton Hobson's come through the lane. That's Bo Albert that's just shot through. So he's going to feed in ahead of the next group of cars, and actually quite close to Bo Albert in terms of things as well. So we're going to have to keep an eye on the pit stop times, and we might even have a look at what they look like in the back half of things. By the way, that margin for the race leads now just tentatively over 1 second, and it's coming down. Ethan Grigg-Galt's managed to put himself in a good position, potential podium in the offering for him here tonight. And I tell you what, he'd love to just stick that, yep, got another podium, got that out of the way, because, man, shaky scene. It's the least consistent he's driven. Quick, always been quick at each and every racetrack, but not consistent. You just don't see that from Ethan.
Yeah, and I love what he's doing. Obviously, very good job with that Logitech G Commodore. He's just staying in touch. He's not doing anything silly. He just finds himself there. He's got a draft there to assist him. So he's hitting his marks. He's not doing anything outrageous, and he's just letting this race play out because there's so much to happen. You know, as far as the next 2 pit stops, so many things can change. But he's just staying in touch, and I think, you know, the way that car looks, you know, tonight might be his night. It actually looks quite good at the moment.
Well, Jake Burton now sits inside that drafting window, that drafting bubble. So if he's going to try and save some fuel, he's now going to get some assistance. He's been punching the hole in that air for such a long period of time. Phil Sell at the back end of this pack. And by the way, Rick Kuznetsov has driven back onto the tail end of this train. So he's taken some time out of the cars up ahead of him as well, which means we do have now an 8-car train as Dylan Rudd tags onto the back end of this one as well. So that's interesting to say. We've got 8 cars back up at the pointy end, all really quite close together. Then your second pack starts from Tom Freer, leads the way all the way down to 13th in terms of that pack, which is currently going to be Brady Myers, who's cut his way through the field from 19th. Myers is going to fire it down the inside of Zach Rattray White, gets himself to 12th, and up ahead, Tom Freer very wide as they got down to turn number 5, which means that Blake Warboys is going to slip his way on through and up into 9th spot, and Luke Rosella's gone with him. So Luke Rosella's finally starting to find some form and find some speed in that 55 Commodore.
An enjoyable experience when you're following someone and they make a move up the inside and you get to
here comes Myers. Myers is done on this lap. So here comes Brady Myers. So he's going to grab 2 on the lap, gets to the inside of Tom Freer, and Zach Rattray White says there's an opportunity in this one as well. So, well, he was 9th at the start of the lap for Tom Freer. He now sits 12th on the racetrack. So one mistake wasn't worth 2 spots. It was actually worth 3.
Yeah, and a possibility of living another one too. But yeah, like I was saying, it's a great feeling when you get to freight train and just follow through on someone's hard work. Oh, just hold on to the grass. But yeah, we're not too far away from pit stops. And look at that margin with Jake, 0.6. But here we go, move up the inside.
So Rosella wasn't done with that one as well. So now he moves himself into 9th spot. So Luke Rosella is really on a charge. And I wonder if there's some impotence in this one. He sees that Brady Myers is coming and he wants to get clear at the front end of this pack and start running away, building a little bit of a margin prior to the pit stop. Now he's wide at the final corner as well. Warboy's actually got a reasonably good drive off that final corner. But if these guys fight too much and Brady Myers all of a sudden got off the corner and went just about nowhere, might have missed a gear shift. And now it's going to be bump drafting from Blake Warboys. He's saving fuel and trying to make some lap time at the same time. But Warboy's quite comfortable, and Myers recognises he's going to go for the fuel save, dives it to the inside. Brady Myers on a real charge. What's that, 3 spots in about a lap? Yeah, he is absolutely coming. Luke Rosella, you better run, you better hide. It's only going to be a couple of laps, and Myers is going to be past you as well.
At the end of the day, if these guys are pitting soon, there's no point saving anything. You may as well use it up. You know you're close to pit stops. Use up what fuel, but more importantly, use up that little bit of tyre that you had in your back pocket too. As we check out this lead now, down to 0.3 of a second now. 0.3 of a second for Jake Burton and James Scott. And he's bringing along Greg Gold, Madison Down, James, Jared Philsell. All these guys now are going to be nose to tail. And then we've got them all starting to think about pit stops as well. So much to play out in the next few laps. This is going to get juicy.
Well, Matthew Bowler, Tyson Broad, 2 drivers again towards the tail end of the field. They've now dived in the pit lane. And what's it going to look like in terms of their lap times? Because I think the driver that just shot through was the lead driver amongst the drivers that have taken their pit stop was actually Brenton Hobson. He's just set his fastest lap of the race. He took about 0.7 of a second out of our race leader on that most recent lap. So there is a little bit of pace in the 88 car out of Synergy Sim Racing. Bowler feeds back in and is going to go tight racing, but he will get that car pulled up and he will manage to hang on the spot over Brady Baldwin. So Bowler's going to have to get aggressive on fresh rubber here.
Because what I'd love to see is one or a couple of these cars in this top, what have we got, top 8. I'd love to see a couple of them dive into this lap, because the last thing you want is them all diving in on the same lap. So if someone's there, maybe, you know, field cell, Kuznetsov, if they're back there, just dive in this lap, because you're going to make up that little bit of margin on that lap with fresh tyres. There we go.
Now Phil Sell thought about following him in through the fake. He's going to come back out. And the other car I was going to talk about was Rick Kuznetsov. He dives to the lane. Right. Lap 18, that's as far as some of these guys wanted to go. And like I said, I think James Scott might just trigger the undercut because he does not want to be undercut. He does not want somebody else to have a go at him.
Yep, and I'm so glad that him and Kazekstov did that too. I was just saying his name and he's darted in. So I'm really keen to see how this plays out. But I think this extra lap on this fresher tyres, this may help out nicely. But Jake Burton is now our race leader, but all these guys will be starting to think about pit stops. That's not too far away. And they don't want to leave it now that they can see that these guys are in the lane, because they know that they'll start giving up a second or a second and a half a lap.
Well, how about the fake from Jared Filsell? That's a NASCAR move, that one. Team manager over at that team, Shane Van Gisbergen. Maybe he's been in the ear teaching a thing or two. Maybe Jared Filsell was having a little bit of fun down the main straight. Don't need the tyre there. You don't need to be cornering. And just show the fake. Nobody else went. I think that's what Filsell was looking at. I'm at the back end of this train. I'm probably saving the most fuel. Let's do another few laps of saving some more fuel. Let's see where we pop out in this one.
Yeah, well, from that shot, the TTR cars, they were committed to staying out. So, yeah, it wasn't a fake for them, but he was definitely faking just to see who else might come.
How about the short pit, though, from Rick Kuznetsov? He has added next to no juice to this machine. And then Luke Rosella's had a reasonably quick pit stop as well, because he's actually closed some margin down to James Scott. I reckon James Scott might have filled this car up. I think he's had a really, really long stop compared to those around him. Now, the difficulty with that, you lose some lap speed. What's the OG Gamer Gear replay going to have for us with this one? Is the Jared Filsell fake?
Yeah. So that's when Rick's followed, but he saw that obviously Jared went back out again. So I think he was committed. Rick was committed to coming in. So what he's done now, he's got a lighter fuel load, but what he wants to do now is push with those tyres and make that speed advantage that he's got on that lighter fuel tank. So that will work for him in the short game, but he needs to have it work out and play out for him in the long run.
I'm really interested. This is an opportunity for a bunch of these guys. Now, well, the fakes aren't going to happen this lap. Who is going to kick on? Madison Down and Jared Filsell are both going to kick on. So it's Jake Burton and Ethan Greekgold. El Nabi and Rudd come to the lane in behind them on the end of lap number 19. Tom Freer's gone another lap as well. So there's definitely some fuel left in these cars and left in the tank. You can certainly keep going. But for how long? Madison this season, I tell you what, at a lot of racetracks he shouldn't have, and a big one was Jerez. He was very, very slow at Jerez on that first run on the tyre. He did not have a balanced car, and Filsell's actually going to have a go at him. He's not going to wait for him.
Yeah, the old wily veterans taking it to each other. They're having this red-hot go now. I don't think Madison will worry about putting up too much of a fight, because they know they're going to pit here anyway. But good to see him having the battle. They were obviously saving just that little bit of fuel there, because they were a little bit in traffic. So that's what they've got up their sleeve. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see him dart in this lap round.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. And yeah, when you cast your mind back to Jerez, Madison Down had burned off the front tyres, very, very clear in that car. And stint 2 and stint 3 kind of recovered, but the damage was done on that first stint. He went further than he should have. I wonder whether or not there's been a rethink over there. He likes to run long in terms of the strategy. Well, a little bit of an adjustment back up at the front end of things as well. Greekgold took a shorter stop, has popped out ahead of both Rick Kuznetsov. Brady Myers has come out ahead of James Scott as well. So he's elected for a shorter stop. And they're both, Greekgold and Forza Nalnami, both out ahead of Rick Kuznetsov. So this is really starting to get interesting. And I'm wondering whether or not James Scott's missed a trick here.
Yeah, look, it's swings and roundabouts too, isn't it, with the pits? You know, if you decide to short pit your first one, that means you're going to go long in the second one, and vice versa. You go long in the first one, you're going to go shorter in the second one. So it's on how they want to gamble and see how this race plays out. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's nice to have a crystal ball, but it doesn't always show you exactly how it's all going to unfold.
Mate, if I could find that crystal ball, I would be $1 million, multi-million dollar race engineer. I'd be telling you exactly what the right strategy was each and every week. There are teams right around the world that have simulations that do that, and it still never pops out the right way. So what hope are the rest of us?
Down's in.
Madison Down's in, but not Filsell.
Yeah, he's pushed on.
And who was sitting in third was Tom Freer's also kicked on.
So that advantage will come later for Filsell. He's going to have those fresher tyres as this race goes on, where the others are sort of starting to use theirs up a little bit. So, you know, it's always good to have a couple of lap fresher tyres up your sleeve. I don't think he has to worry too much about his pace. We've all seen what Jared's capable of, and he's been there or thereabouts tonight. Got shuffled back a little bit, but now he finds himself with a little bit of clear air. He'll use up exactly what he's got and not worry about what's left in the tank. Use it up and then start to dart to pit lane. But he may lose out a little bit with these guys on fresher tyres, but I think it may sort of come back to him as the run goes on.
So I'm now going to ask you this, and I know you're going to give me an answer that you just were guessing, But Phil Sell's gone long here. Do you think he has a shorter pit stop than everyone else around him now to jump out with some track position? Does just Phil the thing? Why not?
Yeah, no, look, it depends on how much he saved too. I mean, you know, we see how it plays out. You know, when you take that fuel tank, you do lose a lot of track time, but you know it's going to come back to you. It's about being patient, and if you can just make it work and hit your marks and not be too stressed about the fact that there's other guys that are a long way in front of you, you know they're going to come back to you when they pit because they're going to have a longer fuel stop later.
Oh, check this out. Both of these guys have just about added the same amount of fuel, so they come out right next to each other on the racetrack. And at this point in time, Brian Borg's just jumped on the radio, and there is a slow car on the run into turn number 1. So something's just happened at turn 1 on this lap, and I don't think it was Borg that caused it. So something's happened there.
Geez, if you imagine a safety car comes out now, Jared Filsell will be pretty stoked with that. But
no, he wouldn't. He'd be actually really upset because everyone else would be able to take their second stop and he wouldn't.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you are totally right. So here we go. We got the original Game of Gear replay. Oh, made severe contact to the back of Borg. He bolted wide after getting that tap. They've rejoined, thankfully. So that's not going to be a safety car. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Jared will be sweating that. But thankfully, we're going to keep green with that.
Well, that'll solve that question.
And he's in.
Yeah, I was just starting to think in the back of my mind, somebody's just said, oh, yeah, something happened down at turn 1, and my nerves would be through the roof as a driver or as a race engineer, and I'd be saying, no, we've got to pit now. There's too much risk left in this one. So just shy of the halfway mark in terms of things, which means if we were to get a safety car now, you could run it home, but it'd be a very, very long stint to the back end of the race. And through to the race lead, Ethan Greek-Galt and Forzan El-Nabi just filling his mirror a little bit. And I think these two, even if you're in Forzan El-Nabi's shoes right now, that move isn't about putting him off because you don't want to race whilst you're up here. If you get to Greek-Galt and you've got the pace, you want to go by as soon as possible, losing that time racing each other, it never worked.
Yeah, you want to go as hard as you can, but I guess he's in a situation too where he can probably save a tiny bit. You're obviously not going to be in massive fuel saving mode because you're going to start to lose time to the guys chasing you down, but they don't need to trip over each other. They've got their own little strategy going. They've got that decent margin over the rest of the field, and speaking of the rest of the field, here it comes. So they're going to be watching the back of their thing, and we can see the fuel cells managed to hold on.
It down the inside and picks the spot up from James Scott. So that's going to change things once again. And the strategy and the racecraft games we thought they were on already, well, they've flipped, they've flopped, they've zigged, they've zagged, and they'll have one more bite at the cherry. And I'll just put this in the back of your mind as well, Sandman. 12 seconds shorter pit stop compared to Jake Burton and James Scott for Brady Myers. He has a light, agile car right now.
Yeah, that's going to be pacey. And speaking of stop differences, I was looking at Madison Down and Jared Filsell were nose to tail. Filsell's come out in 4th, Madison's come out in 10th. So that just goes to show the difference in pit stops as far as, how much fuel someone may take and everything else. So, yeah, so much still to play out as we start to approach the halfway mark here of this. Has actually turned out to be an absolute ripper around this racetrack. It never lets us down, does it?
Who doesn't love a good old chess match at 250 plus kilometres an hour? Because that's what we're witnessing right now. Oh, and you've got to try and get the power down when you get to the end of the corner. Not pinch your brake, not make a mistake. Have a think about your front and rear end roll bars. Is your brake bias where you like it at this point in the stint as well? When you're a race car driver, there's a lot going on in that cockpit, and you can't position the car out of line at any stage. Do you want to overtake? Do you want to fuel save? The cockpit of a race car is just so busy with all the things you've got to do.
And that's one of the handy things about having team members too, that, you've got people that work behind the scenes where you're getting the job done and they're starting to think about your strategy. You can see there the different laps that people have been pitting as far as their fuel. So fuel and tyres is a huge key around here. And if you've got someone behind the scenes helping you, that's just one less thing you need to think about as a driver.
Yeah, and now Jake Burton's managed to find his way past Rick Kuznetsov down into turn number 1. They all pit about the same lap, this group of cars. But that graphic, what it doesn't tell you is the amount of fuel that's being dumped in their race car. So it's, I believe it's about 2.25 or so litres per second that you can get into the car in terms of things. That's what we're looking at. Now James Scott senses that Rick Kuznetsov's probably a touch vulnerable, or he's saving a little bit of gas. He'll dive to his inside and get that move done as well. And Jordan Ross has played his way into this group in terms of strategy. So for Jordan Ross, he has a supremely short pit stop on this cycle, very similar to Brady Myers. And the thing is, it's brought him into this lead group, which means it's going to probably give him a little bit of pace as well, because they'll pull him along.
Yeah, and again, it's about rolling that dice. And like you said, if you can be in this train, we saw it in the early stages when we had those long shots where that front group was just starting to pull away from each other. And I think that's just where everyone just be smart about their driving. They just stay nose to tail, stay in that draft, and they all pull each other along and just slowly start to gap the rest of the field. So if he finds himself in a position where he's happy to just sit and he's quite content to hold on, that will definitely play out nicely for him as this race plays out.
Yeah, Michael Whiting's picked himself on the 5-second time penalty for contact with Brian Borg at turn 1. So that's probably about appropriate for that one. They both lost multiple spots out on track. So for Michael Whiting and the way he goes about his business is we've got a few older drivers. The benefit of sim racing, and this is something I talk about to people all the time, is if you've got a disability, it prevents you from racing the car in real life, you can still go sim racing. That's the biggest part about it. There's drivers that are a lot older that probably can't be as quick in the real world as they can in the sim these days. They still want to go racing. They jump in the sim to go and have a go as well. It's the great equaliser, sim racing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of our pluses, isn't it? That anyone can join. We can race anywhere around the world. We don't have to worry about having a budget to go racing. You know, there's so many positives. And then when we join a series like this that we've got with the Logitech G series, you know, where you've got race stewards involved, and you know, it's good, hard, clean racing. That's exactly what you want. And to be able to have that in your own living room or man cave or wherever you may be racing, that's just an absolute benefit around the world.
Yeah, you can even have a fridge underneath the desk to reach out and grab a nice cold can of Coke as well. I know you've got down there, Sandman.
Absolutely. I'm still waiting for that Coke sponsorship.
Well, battle packs are starting to really form up and around the field, and 40 trying to give a good old nudge to Zach Rattray-White. A little bit of a hurry up, give in to him, a little bit of bump drafting, and Blake Warboy's back in this pack as well. And in terms of the strategy for this group, where they've all pitted, Sean McNamara is at the back end of the battle pack. Britton Hobson's played his way forward. Remember, he was one of the early stoppers as well, pit at the end of lap number 15 with a shorter stop. Ian Ford's actually had a reasonably short stop. The other guys in this pack have had longer stops, middle of the range though, not shorter stop, not longer stop.
That was always something that played on my mind as a driver. I was like, you know, do you take that pain early and go for the longer stop knowing that you're going to have a shorter one later? But there's drivers out there that love to go for the short one at the start and just push as much as they can knowing that they're going to have that longer stop later. So it's catch-22, and it's nice when it works out if a safety car happens to, you know, come out and it works in your favour. But, you know, so many things change throughout this race, including track temperature too. We've been talking about that's been a topic of discussion throughout qualifying as well.
And have a look at that graph. It's steadily climbed as the days sort of progressed. And one of the other big things about sim racing, I believe the race start of this one happened just over an hour ago. So it was due to start at about 9:45 in sim. It's now 10:45 in terms of things. And as that, the sun gets down on the track starts to heat up, grip starts to go away. So you're going to have a car that you can sort of tinker with a little bit on the bars and find something with. If you run out with a setup that's only good in the coldest track temps, you're going to go backwards pretty quickly. Righto, lead pack, where are we looking in terms of things? I think the big key at the moment is, can the two out at the head of the field start to make some headway? Well, in the most recent lap, I can tell you, Force Nabi took 0.6 of a second. Dropped 0.6 of a second of Jared Philsell at the moment. So he is fuel saving quite aggressively. But Philsell is absolutely on a charge, and this is their times through the pit lane. So this will tell a little bit of a story. Force Nabi, 5 seconds shorter than Ethan Greig-Gault. So these two on track, whilst they're right next to each other, not relevant. Philsell, 24 seconds. Jake Burton and James Scott, look at them, 28, 29 seconds for those guys.
Yeah, they're the ones that are going to benefit. Philsell, Burton, Scott, those long pit stops that they've had, that's going to play out nicely for them, because next time round they're not spending as much time in the lane as everyone else. So, and then you can see the pace that Jared's got on board. Even though that he's taken all that fuel, he's still quick, and he's got that margin now to under 5 seconds to Forza Nabi.
And for Forza Nabi, about a 6-second longer stop at this next pit stop is what he's going to be looking for, although he's trying to use Ethan Greek Gulp to save some lap time. And for Greek Gulp, back to Jared Filsell, it's about that 5-second marker, 4 to 5 seconds. So that's what he's got to maintain. At the moment, he just holds enough that he popped back out ahead of him. So until we get that final pit stop, we are not going to know what it looks like out on track, and that's when the games will start to kick off. In the meantime, I just want to look maybe perhaps a little bit deeper. We look around 22nd on backwards. There's a huge old battle pack that's still raging at this point in time. Matthew Bowler leads this one from Damien Johnson. Jake Maloney did take a longer stop, but remember, had a 5-second penalty, so he's cleared that one out of his pit stops. This is actually his relative pace in terms of where he sits at the moment, and Damien Johnson on him 7 laps earlier in terms of the pit stop, but stopped for about the same length of time for fuel. So relative between these guys, but you'd expect Maloney should be able to make that pass with the tyres in a couple laps time.
Yeah, it looks pacey. Looks like he's going to do it this time round. Like, he's really positioned that car right to the back. He would get a decent run out of here. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him get the job done into turn 1. So looking quite pacey. He's got laps on his side at the moment, and he's right up the tail there. So looks like, yeah, here we go. He was already starting to pull out as I was about to say it. So, but now it starts to become a bit of a drag race because he's still got that little bit of toe. He's going to get 2 for 1 here. So Maloney managed to get the job done, and now it's just eyes forward for him.
Yeah, and he boxed Damien Johnson in. He recognised that when Damien wanted to start to pull out, he pulled out early and boxed him in. But he gave him terrible choices. He didn't have really an option, and now Johnson gets to the back of Matthew Bowler. And he will get a little bit of a run off the corner as well. And now, look, Mitchinson's going to try and pull alongside. A little bit of a side draft. Look for, there's a whack from Mitchinson now on the straightaway. And everyone's looking for every advantage they can possibly find. Mitchinson leaves that one alone. Bowler's going to try and fire it back down to the inside of Damien Johnson. Does he get it pulled up? He does. Little bit of a whack. Not quite done. Now it's done. In the meantime, Jake pulls the trigger and thinks, okay, if I'd have waited a corner longer, that could have been disastrous.
Yeah, he could have been in that, and they could have all been backwards down that straightaway. So managed to, like you said, he got the job done at the right time, and just start to gap these guys now. But yeah, that was a little bit of hold your breath stuff going down that straightaway, a little bit of side-by-side contact. But thankfully, they played hard, but they're all sort of pushing on, and they've got away with it. So good to see.
Yeah, that's his supercars racing at the top end of the spectrum, isn't it? You've got to make a little bit of contact. If you can't deal with the contact, get out of the kitchen, generally is the way these guys play.
Well, we've got panels, mate. Let's use them up. They're not open wheelers, so a little bit of bump and grind here every now and then. It's not too bad, as long as they're not facing the wrong way on purpose. I mean, that's, we love to see that sort of door handle racing.
Yeah, that was right about on the limit. Probably not much wrong in that. You wouldn't kind of want to touch the steward, but any more than that, you probably will. So it's good to see. But for these guys, it's all about where they set themselves up. And have a look at how far Jake Maloney skipped clear of these guys as well. He's going to take a huge chunk of time out of Andre Yusuf is the next car on track as well this lap.
And he's got what every driver enjoys too, is that clear air. And it's nothing better too. You get that clear air, you look in your mirror, and everyone behind you starting to get smaller. It's a good feeling as a driver.
He'll keep his eyes forward. So in terms of strategy, he's actually going to jump probably a good 4 drivers ahead of him in terms of strategy, just because he's got the right amount of fuel on board at the moment. Whilst back up at the pointy end, and Matthew Bowler's still getting lined up as everyone wants to try and find their way in behind him. So Taliancic scoots on by Luke Mitchinson, and now he'll try and make his way a little bit further on. And Michael Whiting's in for his final stop of the night and to clear that 5-second penalty. Jacob O'Reilly's also just come into the lane as well out of the millions, but he was at the back end of the field, so he was not having a good night. I wonder whether or not there might be some damage associated with that one for O'Reilly.
Yeah, and sometimes when your night's not going right, it's like, you know what, let's put a set of 4 Dr. Feelgoods on and just make you feel yourself a little bit better as you lap around here, because if you're having a bad night and the car's not feeling great and the tyres are pretty average, it's a nice shot in the arm when you come in and put on a fresh set of Dunlops. So he'll do that, push on with the rest of his night. Obviously not ideal, but a couple of cars going a little bit wide there. Managed to keep it straight though.
I believe that might have been Tom Freer that was out in the weeds. Indeed it was. Luke Rosella's now into this. Have a look at how big this pack of cars has become. So we've got our front 2 that sort of skipped away. Then you've got Jared Filson, who sits 3rd with a little bit of a lighter fuel load on, and he's trying to go out and hunt down those leaders. And then from 4th on back to 12th, which is this next battle pack. And Tom Freer now sits at the back end of this battle pack. That's a lot of cars that are trying to save some fuel.
It's crazy to think that anyone out of this top 12, regardless, obviously there's still pit stops and we've touched on the different lengths that people have to stop, but anyone inside this top 12 is a possibility of snagging this win. I mean, there's so much to play out, but this is what these guys need to do, is just get yourself a ticket to the end and stay in touch with the leaders, because goodness knows what's going to happen. Pit stops might play out. People might get a little bit racy. There might be some contact. A couple of cars might fire off into the weeds, and you could be starting to pick up the pieces. It's the typical Mercedes piece that we saw on the weekend, isn't it, from George Russell?
Yeah, just sit there, have your own calm kind of race, get yourself in a little bit of clear air, run a quiet night at the office, and oh, hey, look, everything kicked off up ahead of me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think the entire Australian racing community looked at that one and went, come on, Oscar, have a go, mate. He did have a red-hot go. He needed probably, one more lap? I reckon one more lap he would have had him.
A couple more laps, but it's never mind. Still a good result.
You'll take that, and some work as he continues on. Another original Game of Gear replay is Warboys getting down the inside here. And I think that's Rattray White yet again, down at turn 5. So he gets the job done, gets ahead of this queue. And look at how close these guys are. Although it's not done, Rattray White will sneak back through with a good old crisscross, gets underneath him and gets the job done at turn 6, runs him a little bit out of road, and Ian Ford says, well, all right, why not? I'll have a freebie.
I love it. Crisscross will make you jump. That's great. Fantastic. Love it.
Okay, so I can tell you there's an update about the Jacob O'Reilly. Hit the kink. Hit the wall just off the kink on the back straight. So that's what triggered that pit stop.
There you go.
So right there on the left-hand side is where that one happened. Apparently it went to the wall quite hard on the left-hand side of the road. So we'll go ahead and see if we can grab a replay of that one. But this battle pack's actually quite important right now, because they are starting to pull themselves back up to Robbie Gibbs, who's the next car on the road. And Gibbs has had a very short pit stop, so this is actually relevant for the entirety of this group. I'll tell you what, Rattray White got clear at the front end, and now he's starting to make some ground as well.
So Jordan Ross has decided to peel off as look at the OG Gear replay. Original Game of Gear replay. Oh, this is it. Understeer. Oh, onto the grass. Oh, tank slapper it into the concrete. And
So
that's
it's
what
the
you were
other
talking
side.
about. Yeah. So he got sideways, and then it whipped him across and fired him into the concrete onto the right-hand side. So, but still managed to keep going. That's the main thing.
Yeah, so Robbie Gibbs is in the lane, Jordan Ross is in the lane, Sean McNamara will now dive to the lane, as well as Brenton Hobson. So a few of those guys are actually drivers at quite short pit, and they're now going to be 15 laps to home from here. So this last stint will be just a little bit longer. That middle stint was quite short. Just begs the question, how long does Ethan Greg-Galt, Brady Myers, Forzanel Narby go? Because a lot of those guys, Tom Freer was in that group as well, remember? That did pit quite early on, and for not a lot of fuel as well. An update for Rattray White, 5-second penalty, which is unfortunately going to take him out of contention.
I'm curious with Ethan Greg-Galt and Forsan. That margin is still at 3 seconds with Jared. So, yes, they're going to be in a little bit longer, but, they're holding their own. I think if it had really got down to sort of 2 and 1 second, they'd probably start thinking about darting in now. But at the moment, I guess they're kind of holding their own, but they are going to have to take that penalty as far as being in the lane a little bit longer. Not a penalty as such from the steward's point of view, but the penalty that they've rolled the dice as far as going for a lighter fuel load early on. So, but they also need to keep something up their sleeve as far as track time. Like, you don't want to leave yourself short on laps, because if you've got the car, you still want to be able to chase down that leader for the margin that you give up.
And I mean, the other side of that coin in terms of strategy for those guys as well, Fulzan could have raced Ethan Greg-Galt quite hard, hasn't done that. I think they would have cost themselves half a second doing so they'd be even worse off in terms of their position. So, race brain switched on there at the front end of town as well. You kind of expect that when you get to this level. Jake Burton's been towed along by Brady Myers and teammate Jake Maloney's into the pit lane and has had a very, very long stop now for Jake Maloney. So I think his night might actually be over.
Oh, he's had a mix of fortunes, hasn't he? He had a good charge there. He had a penalty throughout the night, and now, we're hearing that there could be reports that his race is done. So, yeah, obviously not the night he has hoped for, but hopefully he can come back bigger and stronger for the next round.
I wonder whether or not it might have been a speed on pit lane entry penalty that's made that long. But apparently we're hearing the speed on pit lane was actually quite good. And here comes the stops, by the way. Ian Ford, another one of the early pitters for a short amount of time. Dylan O'Shea, Matthew Bowler, and Scott Gamble. All those guys in. So final rounds of pit stops are now starting to come through. And we will get that end result to the question we've been asking is where does everyone sit? I reckon Myers is probably due either this lap or next lap, I would say.
Yeah, I think Greg Galt and Forzen El Nabi, I reckon they need to come this time round. Because even if the others stay out, they'll have that charge on fresh tyres too, that they'll be able to sort of close up a little bit of that margin too. So for me, I don't know. Look, I think I'd be wanting to get them in sooner rather than later, and hopefully make that margin on from fresh tyres.
I'll have a look at where Jordan Ross has actually popped out. So as the race goes, your field spread starts to pick up, and for Jordan Ross, he's now sort of popped himself out a little bit further down in terms of things, 25th as it sits on the track at the moment. So difficult night at the office for him, but he's right back there. He's coming out ahead of Sean McNamara and Robbie Gibbs and Brenton Hobson as well. So I think actually of all the drivers that have done their pit stops, he is now the leader. So first driver to get his final stop done. Forzen El Nabi's going to pull out of that train and start his pit stop, so that'll probably trigger Greg Galt to come in as well, you would think.
Yep, I love that he's done that. I was just saying that to you a lap ago. I said I'd like to see Bobby Ethan Greg Galt. There's some more drivers that have all decided to fire off in pit lane, and this is where it's going to play out, these stop differences, because everyone's taking different fuel loads.
So James Scott did all the pushing in that first stint. Then he took a heavy fuel load in the middle run on this stint. Madison Down now starts to close that margin. And if you are going to jump away, if you're going to need to take a loo break at any point in this race, it might want to be now, because it's about to kick into overdrive. If you haven't cooked the popcorn, if you haven't got it ready, if you haven't got the butter and the salt ready to go on that popcorn, now's your time, because it is just about to boil over.
Just frantically looking at those times on the right-hand side of the screen. So it looks like Burton's away, 16.5 seconds. Kuznetsov, 18 seconds. Forzen El Nabi, 26 seconds. That's what we're talking about. So now Burton now finds himself with that little bit of air. Someone just managed to get round in front of him, but he's going to have that fresh tyres. So he's battling here. He's going to get the move done. This is what he needs to. Fresh little bit of clear air. He can start pushing on with his race. It's going to be side by side, close on exit. Has to give up the spot there, Griffin Gardner. Now he just decides to tuck in behind Jake. So Jake's now on those really, really fresh tyres. They're not coming up to temperature just as yet, but now this is where we're going to start to see the game start to play, because all these other teams need to start thinking about their pit stop. Oh, a bit of a lock up there too for the 93, but managed to hold it up, didn't make contact to the back of Burton.
Yep, so for Griffin Gardner, ran long on that first stint, hasn't made his second stop. So he would be feeling really all at sea at the moment in terms of things, because could have been leading that race. That could have been him. And Jake Burton, out of everyone who's pit, has popped out in the lead. I tell you what, Rick Kuznetsov's popped back out ahead of Forzen El Nabi, and the difference between him and Jake Burton's about 2.5, 3 seconds, somewhere in that margin. Does Greg Galt drive the lane? Yes, he does. What is the margin, though, to Jared Filsell? Filsell is going to kick on in this one, and James Scott is coming to the lane. So here we all go. The strategy dice have been cast. Where do they settle out? Filsell, the only non-taker. Tom Free has gone through for another lap as well. It's a busy old time at the Elkhart Lake pit lane.
Because we saw the difference with Filsell, so no, we know that he's not going to be stopping as long as what some of the other drivers are. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him come in the next sort of lap or two. But Jake Burton now, he's sort of now the run here. We're going to keep an eye on him as far as where we think it's all going to play out, because he's got his stop done and now he's just making that charge. He'll be desperately trying to get down that front straightaway as quick as he can, because he knows that these other teams, including his teammates, are in the lane getting their stop done now.
Yeah, Marcelo Rivera is the next car on track as well. Remember, ran up the back of Griffin Gardner on that initial start, and still sits ahead of Griffin Gardner on the track. Gardner's going to dive the lane. Rosella, Rudd, both in. Madison Down's going to feed back out behind. James Scott is not right on the rear bumper of Jake Burton. So Burton has made some time here, and on this lap he's going to get some tow. He really wants to make sure that he can get himself clear of Marcelo Rivera. If he can do that on this lap and there's not a whole bunch of tow, he may be able to set sail because that late stint pace, I'm going to say I think James Scott was fuel saving. I don't think that was necessarily a tyre offset. I think it was some fuel saving. So Burton's going to get aggressive here. They get aggressive a little bit further back as well, because now Forza El Nabi's going to try and contend with Dylan Rudd. This is your championship leader in Dylan Rudd. Trying to the road. Tries to go around the outside as Jake Burton. He's really looking to try and get this one done and get clear. Rivera's still down on the inside. Critical in terms of the race. Rivera's tagged him. Jake Burton had the lead of this thing. Not no longer. James Scott gets a freebie.
Oh, absolutely ruined his race there. That little bit of contact now has absolutely destroyed any chance. He was effectively the race leader, and now being having that contact, that has ruined his night.
Yeah, and Marcelo Rivera is going to be not much of a chance in this one as well. Now have a look at Dylan Rudd, who's trying to slice down the inside of Forza El Nabi. Greek Gold's going to try and have a go as well. These guys led the race in that middle stint. Now they're squabbling for positions outside the top 10 as it currently stands, and El Nabi's taken to the ground. Just barely manages to hang onto the thing. Greek Gold will slice his way through. Sits now in P11. They've still got that car. Rivera's so slow in the straight line, remember. He's got a ton of damage. Dylan Rudd's looking at the rear bumper of Rick Kuznetsov. This is your top two in the championship at this juncture, and whether or not they will be at the end of tonight's racing is about to be decided in what we've got 11 more laps. It's going to be 10 more laps of this racetrack. It's going to be 60 kilometres to decide this thing.
Well, everything that's just played out in those last few corners, I think that's absolutely gifted it to Jared Filsell now, the way this is going to play out.
Rick Kuznetsov did not get drive off the final corner. Went nowhere as they drove off the last corner. Rudd's gone through, and it's going to be a little bit of a push and a little bit of a tow from Ethan Greek Gold as he moves across. Changes his drafting buddy. Now he's looking for some assistance from Rick Kuznetsov in the Triple A machine. Where does Greek Gold go? He was late on the brakes when they get to turn one. Dylan Rudd, and a big old wiggle. Forza El Nabi into the back of Rick Kuznetsov. And I told you, get the popcorn ready, because this race has started to pop off.
Oh, it's not over yet. These guys still squabbling and taking whatever they can from each other, giving each other no room on exit. But man, oh man, this is just playing out nicely, I think, for Filsell. That gap is sort of over 46 seconds to his teammate in James Scott. So he's going to have his trip down pit lane, and I think he's going to be absolutely gifted this. But not a gift as far as he hasn't earned it, because he's been quick all night.
Well. So this all kicked off up here because Marcelo Rivera is trying to do he's trying to be in this group. This was not his fight. This is something he didn't have a bar of. He had no reason to be in there.
No, there's no way that he should have been in there, because obviously, like I said, he still had to make a pit stop. He wasn't racing those guys around him. I mean, yes, it was for position at that time, but not for overall position, as we see Filsell into the lane.
Well, now he's got that pit stop cleared, and it's going to be the only other driver yet to take his final pit stop, who might take over the lead of this one. If you're in Andre Yusuf's shoes, you just continue on a lap, so you get to say, yeah, I'll let a lap of this thing.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you've got a pit and it's all going to go to custard shortly, then why not? Let's live the dream a little bit and lead a couple of laps. So, at the end of the day, he is essentially the leader, but there's still a little bit that has to play out for him.
Well, the one thing that we can say about 2024 is I want to know what race cars drink, or what race car drivers have for breakfast on a Wednesday morning, because it feels sometimes like it's just another little episode of what's your favourite soap opera this year. There's something a little bit different.
Now, it looks like Filsell's still in the lane, and his teammate. So 19.5, there we go. He's just going to exit now, so his teammate gets him. I thought he might have had a little bit more margin, so he's managed to come out in second in front of Madison Down. So our top three, James Scott, Jared Filsell, Madison Down, as it all plays out. But now we know Jared's just got those couple of laps fresher tyres, and I think he's going to be a real threat to his teammate.
Update from Race Control on the incident involving Marcelo Rivera and Jake Burton. 15-second penalty for car 21. And, I guarantee that Jake Burton, look, he's not going to mince his words. He's going to tell Marcelo, hey, what was that about? And he'll certainly have it out with him. And then it'll be, okay, sweet, that's now behind us, play on. Is generally the way that those guys will go about their business. But Madison Down lurked beneath the water tonight, sits in third spot. Greek Gold has had a reasonable night at the office, sits fourth. Dylan Rudd has had a great drive, started 11th, so outside your top 10, sits fifth on the road. And I get the feeling that Jared Filsell's going to take some points off him, but this might be enough just to hang on to the championship lead another round.
Well, speaking of points, I reckon Jay might even be able to bring us up some live points. How would that be? Just to get us a bit of an understanding. And there it is right now. Dylan Rudd, 972 as it plays out, with Jared Filsell on 962. Absolutely nothing in it between these. And look, Rick Kazestov, 960. Oh, drama!
Hang on, because Adam Briggs, and I think that's Scott Gamble, have had a little bit of a coming together on the exit of turn 5.
Oh, they're going to get away.
They're going to find some spot. I thought there might have been an engine blown there somewhere.
Oh, imagine a late safety car. Could you imagine? Oh, my goodness. I don't know if my heart could hold up to that.
Oh, it would certainly be worth a watch. The original Game of Gear replay. So Briggs has got the lead down here. And Gamble and Taliancic, some of the more seasoned drivers in the field as well.
Locked a tyre.
Gamble just got in there a touch too hot.
Yeah, on the brakes, locked a tyre, and then just unfortunately got into the side of him. So, yeah, that's a tough one.
Oh,
here we go.
Have a go, because Jared Filsell now comes to the point of this race and scoots through by a clear margin. And James Scott, by the way, might be in a little bit of a fuel hole just in the way that that's driving. That was a little bit too easy, but that would put Dylan Rudd and Jared Filsell net even at 972 points at the halfway mark of this championship.
Wow. I mean, do you get in Dylan Rudd's ear now as you the team and say, you know what, maybe it's worth maybe trying to pinch Ethan Griggold there, but you don't want to throw it away at the same time. You know, at the end of the day, if you can't get the job done, he's better off just to bring it home in P5 and stop the bleeding as such, because the way it is at the moment, obviously Jared's in P1. He's not going to pinch any more points away from you unless he makes a mistake, as far as Dylan makes a mistake and then goes backwards. So it's catch-22, isn't it? Do you get in his ear and tell him, or just tell him to sit pretty?
Well, he's got to do all that he can do. I think you don't necessarily play with this one too much. You just say, Dylan, look, it's on the table right now. Do they even know the live points? Would be the other question. But Dylan will know he's got a job to do. I said this week, look, he's got to beat in this round. And in the early standings, you just thought Filsell might have been having a few wobbles in the early running of things. Nah, good drivers always respond and always get themselves back in a sync, and Jared Filsell's done that.
Yeah, what's the old adage? The cream rises to the top. You asked me tonight when the start of the race who my money was on, and I put the money on Filsell. I figured he might get the job done tonight, and I don't want to call it too early because there's still 9 laps to go, but he's done everything right. He's sat patiently when he's had to. He hasn't worried about falling back. I think he found him back to 7th or 8th position, possibly at one stage. So for him to be back there and just slowly start picking away, save fuel at the right time, had a good strategy, had some fast car pace, and it's all being rewarded for now.
And just think, cast your mind back to 2022. Jared Filsell won the first ever Logitech Pro Invitational Championship. Could he be our first ever multi-time champion? Madison Down won last year, defending champion. Well, first multi-time champion. You could be seeing what that looks like out on track at the moment. James Scott's not making too much time. I do think he might be just fuel saving a little bit. He might have just undercut just a little bit in terms of the fuel, just to get that margin out ahead, and then might have been saving in the latter stages of this one. But keep your eyes on that as it progresses. And who's fighting out for the minor places? Jake Burton. I reckon he would have led this thing, I think.
Yeah, well, he was in the strongest position of all, but obviously we were still waiting for a couple of more players to dive into pit lane. But he'd done everything right. He was quick, and we saw him come through the field at the start. He made himself and found himself, quite comfortable, got himself into P2 and sort of sat. He didn't worry about how far James Scott got up the road. He was very consistent. His car was good. He had good strategy, and unfortunately just got taken out there in the end. And, that's turned his night to custard. So, but still, Jake needs to keep his head held up high, considering he didn't have that much practice coming into tonight, and to still to be in a position where he had a possible chance at winning this is something to be mega proud of.
Yeah, and difficult to sum up in terms of words, but at the moment there's a battle going on, by the way, between Jordan Ross and Zach Rattray-White for 13th on the road. And I think Rattray-White's just about to fire it down the inside. Yes, he will, as they get down here to turn number 8. Gets the job done, and then gets a little bit of attitude in the car as they come out the other side as well, because those rear tyres, if they haven't done enough work by now. And I tell you what, Rattray-White's actually been making time relative to Blake Warboys as the next car on the road as well.
Yeah, what have we got? Still 8 laps to go, so anything can and normally does happen around this racetrack. So I don't know that we've seen the end of it. Whether everyone's quite content just to sit. I think maybe the only person that's quite content to sit excuse me as I lose my voice, is James Scott, just because of the position he's in and he can sit behind his teammate.
Yeah. Cast your eyes a little bit deeper down the field, looking at Dylan O'Shea, Robbie Gibbs, who were going toe-to-toe a little bit earlier on. And O'Shea's cut his way through. Qualifying was out of sequence. By the way, I wonder if we can have a look at drivers who've gained the most positions here tonight, because Dylan O'Shea, I think, might be right up there. Has gained 14 as it currently stands. And this battle pack as well, by the way, isn't going away. It's Forznel Nabi slides by Rick Kuznetsov, and that will harm Rick Kuznetsov's championship standing. So Brent Hobson plus 15, one higher than Dylan O'Shea. Thomas Freeman up 11, Andre Yusuf up 10, Brayden Myers up 9. And Myers isn't done yet. Oh, and just up the road from these guys, Dylan Rudd's just gone down the inside, Ethan Greek Gold as well. So that might hand the championship lead back to Dylan Rudd by a couple points.
How juicy is this getting? And you're right, there it is. 976 plays to 972. That's how close it is at the moment. Unbelievable. Still 7 laps to go, and he's got his work cut out for him, because I think Ethan Greek Gold's still pretty keen to get that position back on him. But at the end of the day, it's risk versus reward.
And another little bit of an update as well. Hayden Vell. His target at the start of the race was to finish 27th. He's got 7 laps to get there. Marcelo Rivera's ahead of him with damage on the road.
Come on, Hayden. You can do it.
One target. I can tell you, they will never let him hear the end of it if he doesn't get there over Revolution Racing Team. I don't think anyone's going to let him ever hear the end of it if he finishes 28th.
I wonder if has he remembered. I want to know if the team has remembered it.
He knows, don't you worry about it. There are about 20, 25 people that have been in his messages letting him know what he wanted to finish this year.
Fantastic. Good on him.
There's a couple hundred of spectators watching at the moment that are now like, come on, Hayden Bell.
Let's go. It's the little wins. You take the little wins, don't you? They don't have to be the top tip of the podium. Yes, that's all good and proper, but, at the end of the day, set yourself some goals, and if you can tick them off through the year, then so be it.
Right, battle packs up at the point where the things aren't done either at the moment. Dylan Rudd has got to hold off Ethan Greek Gold. Greek Gold just rolled out as well. And so Greek Gold definitely recognised there wasn't an opportunity to get that overtake done. Now deeper in the pack as well. Is that Robbie Gibbs and one of the 9? Was that Gibbs? Yeah, it was Gibbs. And Dylan O'Shea on the run out of the final corner down the start-finish straight. So O'Shea gets the inside of Robbie Gibbs. Still manages to hang on to it. And Brent Hobson says, hello, boys. I'm up for a little bit of a stoush late in the race. Why don't you?
We touched on before, the Hobbo had already moved up 15 places. I think he wants to see if he can chalk up a couple more before the race is over. So, yeah, he's definitely in a position here, but love it. A couple of laps to go, and everyone back here in the pack is still fighting. I love it.
Yeah, not quite over yet. There's still laps left in this one. What about... I just want to keep an eye on those lap times for Hayden Veld. I can tell you, he actually lost ground on Luke Mitchinson just ahead of him on that most recent lap, but he is in the draft of him. And like I said, Marcelo Rivera's not too far down the road. Marcelo Rivera actually has a 15-second time penalty to add to that one. Keep in the back of your mind. So actually on the road, he sits 28. So he's just a catch from past Mitchinson.
Oh, please. Oh, that'd be hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, and then you got this battle pack. I'm enjoying watching Robbie Gibbs actually and Dylan O'Shea go toe-to-toe. That is looking like a whole bunch of fun. And then you got Bo Albert and Matty Bowler, who are friendly away from the racetrack as well. There's always a little bit of fun going on around where these two are. Tell you what, there's a few more, shall we say, veteran campaigners up and down the field because they race in the V8 Veterans League, which is right up your alley, actually, Sam, man, because over 40s only. So keep an eye on those drivers as they participate throughout the field. The best of them tonight was Sean McNamara and still is as it currently stands. Then you've also got the 543 machine of Scotty Campbell, who sits right in behind, sorry, my apologies, doesn't sit in behind at the moment. Michael Taliancic was the other one of those drivers as well. So, yeah, the older boys are still taking it to the younger.
Absolutely. I've been in the vet. I've done a few vets races. That's good fun. And there's a couple of fast old boys out there too, which is pretty impressive. So, yeah, they got themselves a great little league. And I think I need to get to the backside trackside and do a couple more races, I think.
Update for Gamble, 5-second penalty for that contact with Adam Briggs that we did see earlier on in the run. And, well, just not disappearing as Ethan Greig still continues to harass and harangue Dylan Rudd. Dylan Rudd is starting to make, I think, a little bit of time here, actually, on Madison Downs. So if he can just gain about 3 or 4 tenths of a second to be right on him. Brady Myers makes his way inside the top 10 and have a look at the battle pack just up ahead as Luke Rosella nearly in the back of Rick Kuznetsov. And now Jake Burton just about helped him out into the grass. And I tell you what, Rosella had a look at that one and thought, no, I'm going to fight this one a little bit harder.
Don't be surprised if you see Jake snuffle a couple of these positions too, because we've seen that he's had great pace all night. So, you know, we've touched on that touch that unfortunately got himself back in the pack as far as he is at the moment. But so don't be surprised if he's actually been able to sort of peel a couple of these spots off before we go. We've got 5 laps to go, so there's still time.
Update on Hayden Bell. And now within half a second of Luke Mitchinson, and Mitchinson did 2 laps earlier than he did, so he is still relevant in terms of potentially being able to get there and having potentially better tyres. On the last lap, 4 tenths of a second he pulled out of him. So he had a dream at the start of the season to drive with a 0.53 machine. Could he achieve that dream at race ends tonight?
Absolutely have to keep an eye on that as this race starts to close up, because that's cool. That's a cool little bit of fun. It'll be good to see how that plays out.
I can't believe how accurate it was to happen. Can I get Hayden Veld to predict the lotto numbers for me this week?
So 4 laps to go. Jared Fieldcell leads over teammate James Scott. Madison down 3.7 seconds there. Oh, a little bit of nose to tail there. How close do you want it there between Dylan Rudd and Ethan Greig?
And I can tell you, Jake Burton is just about doing the same to Luke Rosella on the run down to turn number 1 as well. So this one's not decided either. And Burton might have got the car rotated quite nicely there at the apex. He is close. Is it going to be close enough to fire it down the inside when they get here? The drafting starts.
He's got it.
He's going to pull alongside. He is going to fire it down to the inside of Luke Rosella. They're just about even as they get down here into the corner. He does get far enough up, does get it cleared about, and Jake Burton picks off 8th place on the road. Now the next driver on the road for him is going to be Rick Kuznetsov. Could he put himself ahead of Kuznetsov before race end? Oh, Veldy, please do, son.
So close, and he's still got a few laps up his sleeve to get the job done. Hats off to Jake Burton too, because at the end of the day, it's so easy when your race goes to custard and you get turned around and your night's pretty much thrown away as far as the result. He's been able to just knuckle down, pull a gear, get going, and try to push on.
Come on, Hayden. He was thinking about having a dive at him just there. He just shattered him just a little bit. So he'll get down here to the apex at turn 5 and give himself every opportunity. The other side of that coin is that's Brady Baldwin in the background of this one as well. Oh, Mitchinson runs wide at turn 6. This will present an opportunity. We won't be here off 7. It'll be down at 8. Does rotate the car nicely through there, but too far back for Hayden Veld.
I'd stay in touch. Stay in touch down the front straight and get that draft. That's what I'd want to do.
Back up towards the pointy end of things is we check back in with Jake Burton, Rick Kuznetsov, Forza Nabi and Luke Rosella, albeit not in that order. And the car's up ahead of them. I think they're starting to catch Madison down. They're down and taking about a tenth of a second out of him. If they can eliminate with 3 laps left in this race, another 2.5 tenths, are going to draft and they'll pull up to Madison down. But I reckon they're probably going to do it this lap to give themselves an opportunity on the final lap.
2 great little battles happening, or we shouldn't even say 2. There's so many good battles up and down, but we've only got so many cameras to catch all the action. But yeah, it's been a great night so far, hasn't it? Like, we've seen so much action. There's been a little bit of drama, but really good hard racing too. So regardless of whether we're racing for first or 27th, it doesn't matter. It's good racing all the way through the field.
And now we check back in with Hayden Veld. Can he get the drive off the final corner as he runs up and over the crest of the hill? I reckon he might, you know.
Come on, son. He's close enough. He's got a sniff. He's going to put it up the inside. Doesn't want to make a mistake and go in too deep, though. Oh, he gets a move. He's going for it. This is for side. This is for P27. He gets the side. They're going to go side by side. Don't touch, boys. Hold on to it. And they're going to get through nice and clean. Good job, but it's not over.
Mate, imagine if you could pick the lotto numbers 6 months out. I tell you what, for Haydenveld, he gets down the inside. Mitchelson ran wide, picked up the marbles, and Haydenveld, it's 28th as it stands on the road, but it's effective 27th because Rivera's 4.5 down the road. 15-second time penalty hanging over his head, so his race is going to fall by the wayside, although it kind of did on lap 1 as well.
Absolutely love it. How cool is that?
I can't believe that happened. I cannot believe that has happened.
I love it.
So, have you got any predictions for the footy score this weekend, Sammy?
I think we're talking to the wrong person. That's unreal. That's really cool. And it's the little, like I said, it's the little battles and the things that we enjoy throughout racing. And it's not always about the win. As much as everyone loves to win, there's only one winner every night. So we all set ourselves little goals, and if we can kick them throughout the year, then that's a plus.
Well, Jake Burton just got a good run off the final corner as well, so he's now going to start chasing down Rick Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov's starting to lose touch with Forza Nabi ahead of him, and James Scott starts to reel back in Jared Filsell. They played nice to this point in time. Burton fires it down the inside. Kuznetsov didn't even fight that one, so Burton picks up another spot.
Good on you, Jake Burton. Like I said, I'm glad he just didn't lay down and throw his toys out the cot. It's so easy to do. It's disheartening when your race gets ruined like that. But he's just knuckled on and he's just pushing on with it. Oh, how's this battle too? Side by side. Blake Warboys trying to get the job done here with Zachary. So Zachary's on the outside. Oh, a little bit of give and take there. Oh, is he going to go for the crisscross?
He's looking for it, and I'll tell you what, if Zach Ratro White can come away with this spot over Blake Warboys, and now Jordan Ross has got to run on both
inside.
of them.
Oh,
what's going to happen here?
I'm drafting.
Oh, and Haydenveld and Luke Mitchinson are still at it on the run back down to turn number 1 as we watch this one. So Warboy's covered to the inside. Jordan Ross thought, I'll have a switch back and have a go at you both, because why not? And now he's going to look for the outside run as they crest the hill and go to turn 6. Oh! And there's a little bit of a knock on the run down. Was that turn 1? No, that's the run off of turn 3 onto the middle straight of the circuit as well for Haydenveld. So Mitchinson was in there a touch too hot. And then there's this battle pack on the top side as well.
All happening throughout the field, 2 laps to go. What an amazing race we've seen here. Unbelievable. It's hold your breath. Oh, look at the cars out wide. Oh, the big wiggle there from Ethan Grigol on the grass. That's hold your breath stuff because it's so fast through that part of the racetrack. We've seen cars come undone, and that's the last thing he needs to do while he's holding on to a top 5 position.
Yeah, and it's a good point tonight as well, so he'll be taking that. Forza Nabi will close in just a fraction. When we get to the start-finish line this time by, a white flag will be waved in the air. That's not surrender. There's one more lap left to go. And Jared Filsell, the night started off a little bit shakily, but he got back into the rhythm. He got back into the flow. He's driven himself to the point. And James Scott is there and in the question, but I don't think they'll fight it on the last lap.
How's down wiggling around, just trying to break that draft there because he knows that Dylan Rudd's there. He's just starting to get a bit of a sniff though. So Madison trying his absolute best, just trying to break that draft as we head into the last lap. It's been an absolute cracker of a race, hasn't it? We've seen a little bit of everything tonight. No safety cars, which has been good because that's really thrown racing down the gauntlet as far as everyone putting their best foot forward. Oh, how's the wiggle there for down? Just getting the left rear off into the dirt, fired off to the right side of the racetrack, but managed to keep it straight.
Yeah, and one more lap left to run. So if you've got anything in the tyres, there's no point saving it for the next lap. By the way, Scott was right and underneath the rear wing of Jared Filsell. They got down to turn number 5 as well. So Madison Town will have a margin. It's probably just about enough margin. In the meantime, what's it look like in the background? Because Luke Rosella's just managed to get his wide past Rick Kuznetsov, and Brady Myers will think about it in the last lap as well. We'll do one more. Haydenveld check in on the run down to turn number 1, and Mitchinson's got some attitude in that car. As these guys have got less than 6 kilometres to run in this race now as well. And Kuznetsov, he's strong early. He was the undercut of Brady Myers. He's going to try and fire it to the inside, look for a run. This will be to check the momentum as well. But he'll have them line when they get down here to the carousel. And Myers is I wonder, Kuznetsov, I think, might be out of fuel. I think Kuznetsov is running out of fuel on this lap.
Yeah, it looked like there was a belch of flame out there. I don't know if he was just trying to crack the throttle there. A little bit of contact maybe side by into the sort of nose to tail action, but he could be getting close on fuel. But it doesn't stop Brady Myers from giving up.
Luke Rosella just took all the way out to the runoff area because Jake Burton was just sort of defending off a little bit. Maybe he went in a little bit too hot as they got to the kick. Myers is going to try and have a go once more at Rick Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov gets the inside. Tom Maria's going to come back and have a go at these guys as well. This is for 9th, 10th and 11th on the track. A top 10 to the front two in this battle pack. In the meantime, the Lobs guys, they've done it so far. I think they're doing okay. I think they're doing really okay. Jared Filsell's going to get to the line. Formation finish for these two guys as they pull it out first and second on the racetrack. Madison Down just barely hangs on. One more lap, he's out. Rick Kuznetsov's out of fuel. Rick Kuznetsov's out of fuel just before the line. Loses 2 spots. And he's out of fuel for the 888 driver out of 9.5 Sim Sports. Just didn't have enough juice left in the can. And then this battle pack in behind as well, because Jordan Ross got it out of these guys. Zach Rattray White made some spots. Blake Warboys will come home in 14th and final lap of the race. Dylan O'Shea in 15th. And Hayden Veld sits 28th on the track. Pseudo 27th with a penalty for the guys in front of him. Got in a little bit too hot. Mitchinson's going to try and harass and harangue him out of the last corner. Has he managed to pick it? Has he managed to put his lottery numbers in early? The run to the line. Time's running out. Did he get there? Is he out of fuel? No, he's got it just.
Well done, Veld. How good is that? He's ticked his goal for 2024.
Successful season, he'll say.
That's great.
My word, there's so many drivers down the field that are running out of fuel as well. So fuel was tight for everyone. They stretched it as far as they possibly could have. And Jared Filsell wants to celebrate, but I don't think there's any fuel left in that can either.
Maybe a little bit of nose-to-tail burnout for these boys, possibly. Let's see. But, yeah, great race from Filsell. Did everything right. Their strategy was fantastic. He wasn't too concerned when he fell back a little bit there, but here we go, the dual burnouts. And like you said, they're both doing okay, aren't they? Or has that now run out of fuel? I think we might have just jinxed them. Maybe Scott has just run out of fuel as he tried to start that burnout.
Yeah, and Jared Filsell will come home from James Scott, and it was a phenomenal clean race from these guys, and you just wonder what would a Jake Burton been able to do to those front few guys if he'd have been there at the tail end. Madison Down will come home and chalk off a podium at the back end of the race. Dylan Rudd home in 4th position. Is it enough to hang on to the championship lead? Well, the points that we have say yes, it will, but not by much. Ethan Gritgold home in 5th. Got out of that one without any unforced errors. He'll be happy with that result. Forza El Nabi home in 6th. Jake Burton 7th. Rosella, his best result of the finish finally for Luke Rosella. He'll be happy to have that duck off his back home in 8th. Brady Myers and Tom Freer round out your top 10.
This race certainly didn't let us down, did it? We saw a little bit of everything, and we said it coming into tonight. It was just how good of a racetrack this is for our series, and we've been absolutely blessed. It was really good hard racing from start to finish.
Rick Kuznetsov will run out of fuel, finish home in 11th from Jordan Ross. Zach Rattray White, I think that equals his best finish of the season, home in 13th. Blake Warboys, I thought he had a little bit more pace than that. I think he would have been disappointed not to finish inside the top 10 from Dylan O'Shea in 15th. Brenton Hobson, I think, is going to get the Hard Charger Award in the SSR machine, home in 16th. Robbie Gibbs from Sean McNamara in Ford in 19th, and Damien Johnson 20th. And we'll throw it over to Leaf to probably the most important page in Hayden Veld's year. Andre Youssef from Bow Albert. Matty Bowler will be happy with that one in 23rd. Griffin Garda, you just feel for him. And I'm going to say I probably cursed him. I said good things about him. I'll never do that again. Thomas Freeman home in 25th. Marcelo Rivera, another driver with damage, finishes down in 26th, although there's going to be a penalty there that will remove him from that equation. Taliancic will be in 26th. Hayden Veld home in 27th, although it was 28th on the road. Luke Mitchelson and Brady Baldwin round out your 30. And then finally, the final 10 drivers in the standings. Kurt Stenberg had a really off night at the office in 31st from Michael Whiting. Teo Serrano, Adam Briggs, and Scott Gamble got into it with each other. There'll probably be some words exchanged. What was that? Yep, a little bit of a mistake. All right, play on, boys. Brian Bullock from Tyson Broad, Jacob O'Reilly, and Jake Maloney did not finish the race. Won't score points, I believe, from this one either. And there's an update that nets Zach Rattray White a drive-through penalty, which will move Hayden Veld to 26th on the final lap of the race.
Who would have thought we'd be so disappointed where someone gains a position? We're like, no, it finished perfectly.
Okay, I won't be asking him for the lotto numbers. Right, well, we'll do some numbers here, and this is by our current margins. Remember, take this as your provisional championship standings at the end of tonight's race. Dylan Rudd will lead the championship, but what was a 28-point margin now comes down to 4, and it was a pass on Ethan Greig-Gault that lets him keep that championship lead by standings at this point in time. Phil Sell is on a mission. Winning races left, right, and centre tonight will be no different. Rick Kuznetsov slips to 3rd in the championship, and now he's probably starting to say that's probably my best opportunity. Gone, done and dusted, although runs a very strong car at Bathurst. Could he climb his way back through into the endurance standings? Madison Down moves to 5th in the championship from Brady Myers. Reasonable night for those guys. Blake Warboy still sits 7th in terms of the championship. I think he actually gained some ground here tonight as well. One driver that was actually missing at the office tonight was actually Andrew Gilliam, who actually wasn't in contention here tonight. Slides to 9th in terms of the championship. Came in sitting in tied your top 5. Tom Freer home in 10th. Marcelo Rivera, and Ethan Greig-Gault, the ERT drivers, will be trying to find some luck. They'll probably be trying to buy it somewhere along the case from Sean McNamara, Robbie Gibbs. Kurt Stenberg sits in 15th after a bad night at the racetrack, tied with Jordan Ross. Griffin Gardner, 17th. Hobson, 18th. O'Shea and Rattray White, although Rattray White will have a change to those points. And that'll probably do us in terms of championship standings, because we've got some interviews in terms of things to conduct. We're going to start off by having a chat to tonight's race winner. And it's the man on a mission. It's the man who's been Mr. Consistent, Mr. Pace. It's a man who had a rough start to the race, but from there on, it was pretty cruisy sailing. Jared, that was difficult. Those opening few laps of that race, a little bit out of sequence, and all of a sudden 5 cars fly by, mate. Had to find some rhythm, did find that rhythm again.
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say I got beat up, but got shuffled back a little bit. Yeah, we tried to play a few little games there, but it didn't really work out for us. So no, that's part and parcel with the racing and team tactics and whatnot. But no, we're good to survive there. It was a battle of survival at the front. So yeah, I'm happy to get off the line. To be honest, I missed my poor teammate Griffin. That was really close.
Yeah, I mean, look, interesting night, because obviously the qualifying pace was all about getting that first lap. The track temp started to climb as the session went on there, but settled yourself into a rhythm nicely. Did you always have an idea in the back of your mind, we're going to try and do this with a strategy? Did it play out quite the way you would have liked? I know obviously the fuel at that first stop for you was not a lot of fuel compared to those around you. James took a lot of fuel at that first stop and switched it back at the end.
We have pre-plans before the race, but as you know, it's a fluid situation, so yeah, we made the adjustment to take less fuel and jump and get a bit of track position back and try and claw back and try and use clear air to leapfrog a bunch of people, which worked. And then yeah, with the last stop, overfilled a little bit just to help James with his fuel, so he was a little bit short. So team game there to sacrifice a bit of track time just to help him get to the finish line.
Mate, talk to us about this championship now. We're now halfway through, when the margin between yourself and teammate Dylan Rudd's down to 4 points. So there's quite a number of you guys up at the top. It changes a little bit because James has shuffled a little bit further back down in terms of the championship standings. Are you starting to talk about what happens in 3 or 4 races' time, or we're just not going to talk about that until we get there?
Nah, wait till Enduros are finished and then we can start talking about end of season stuff. It's really good for Ruddy to actually move forward in this race. I was cheering him on to get the podium there. I'm sure if he could have his time back, he probably could have actually got on the podium, and it would have been a cool lockout for new sponsors and everything. That's that would have been great.
Talk to us about the progress in terms of the team as well at the moment, because obviously you two guys are doing really, really well up front, and everything it's just box checking for you guys. The pace is so good, but there's a big old team now starting to work together behind the books. And you got a couple drivers that come on there. Griffin did such a good job in terms of qualifying tonight. What's the discussions is about? We want to build this big legacy. We want to be this big. We want to be the big dog in terms of Australian V8 supercar sim racing. We really want to prove ourselves and take that step forward.
I wouldn't say we want to be the biggest team in the world, because that has its drawbacks, but we were pretty set on 4 consistent top line drivers, and it just happened to pan out that there was a availability of 2 extras in Andrew and Griffin, which they were also on the radar before the season started when we had the choice to pick up Luke and Dylan. So yeah, we kind of had to just jump on that opportunity taken before someone else did. But yeah, we're definitely happy with where we're at the moment. I can't actually, well, never say never, but I can't see the team getting any bigger anytime soon. So we'll just put that to bed.
That's another sort of, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously getting the team in sort of main game drivers, but now you've not just got you 4 guys to think about in terms of the Enduros, and we're 2 races away from getting to Interlagos and that first Enduro now. But do those guys come with endurance drivers already locked in, or is now there got to be some extra searching done to fill those shoes?
A little bit of extra logistics is probably what we need to do. There are a few drivers that we can I wouldn't say poach, but go to and ask, hey, come race for us for the 3 rounds. But I think we'll be sorted for the Enduros, which is coming up very, very quickly.
Mate, and finally, the opportunity is all yours. I mean, if you want to throw some flack at some of the teammates, come on, James. You could have been a little bit faster. Could have saved a little bit more fuel. You know, always rough up the old teammates anytime you get.
Nah, we take the mickey out of each other in the background, not in the public eye. But nah, it's great. Honestly, lock out the front 3 positions there. Obviously, Dylan and Luke didn't have the quality that they probably should have or thought they could have, but I definitely think we could have all been well up there. It's great to see they move forward in the race as well. So onwards and upwards for us. Just going to keep progressing and go race by race, and hopefully we can win a few more.
Mate, congratulations here tonight. Is there anyone you'd like to thank that makes it possible for you and the team?
Yeah, obviously I'll give a big shout out to Brody and Shane for jumping on tonight, helping us out. Short notice, obviously, with Supercars on this week and Chicago, so their weeks are just going to get busier and busier. So for them to put aside some time, 90 minutes of their time, or more with Bush, he actually did a lot of the setup work this week, just getting his eye in and whatnot. So can't thank those guys enough. And obviously with Jack and his social brand doing okay, coming on board for the rest of the season, that's obviously great. I think the cars look fantastic on the live stream and whatnot, and obviously our other continued support from Hybrid Racing Simulations and Rocco Performance. Can't do it without all those guys.
Mate, congratulations on the result here tonight, and thanks for giving us a little bit of a window in the background. And I mean, that's what sim racing is, isn't it, to everyone? It's about getting out there and having fun with your mates. The performances are obviously great out on track, but if you're not having fun behind the scenes, that's the big key to sim racing, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. If you're not having fun, what's the point of doing it? So, yeah, we try to keep it fun, and yeah, we do try to just have fun around one another and not take things too seriously. So, yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you very much for your time, Jared, and we'll see you again in the future.
Thanks, mate.
And Sam Mann is going to get an opportunity to chat to the driver who's sitting behind him, the teammate, James Scott and Sam Mann, coming at you.
Yeah, congratulations, James. What a great race. That, especially towards the end, nice and close. Looks like there was a little bit of strategy that Jared just touched on for yourself there, but you led pretty much the entire night there with us before sort of fuel stop strategies and everything started to play out as I spit my words out. But a good run for you tonight in some brand new colours. Car looks terrific.
Yeah, no, the car does look really good. Good to debut all the new sponsors and that sort of stuff we got on the side of the car. But yeah, no, I just got that little bit of a lead in the first stint, but was struggling a little bit. I just couldn't really find the rhythm and wasn't all that comfortable, so probably hindered my night a little bit. But yeah, good to, was able to recover it in that second stint, save a bit of fuel, keep the pace up pretty good as well. And then yeah, come out, in clean air for a couple of laps, and then when Jared got ahead, it was, pretty straightforward.
How do you find it when you're being the race leader? So I said everyone loves to lead a race, but you're doing all that work where there's some teams behind you, they're all sort of drafting, saving a bit of fuel, but you're out there sort of punching a big hole all by yourself. Does that sort of become annoying, or you sort of just took that in your stride and just sort of figured out how your strategy was going to play out for the rest of the night?
No, it is what it is. I probably wasn't punching a hole in the air that much in the first stint. I got the gap out to 2.5 seconds. But just wasn't fast enough. So I have to go back and need to find a bit more speed. But yeah, if I was fast enough, then I would have probably set up my night. But yeah, just lacks in speed a little bit.
P2's still pretty good, mate. I'd be happy with that. You only got knocked off by your teammate, so that's always good. When you got someone that's in the stable that's going just as fast as you or quicker, that's always good for you to learn from. And, so you can obviously take some positives away from that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always good to have. We've got, obviously we've got a few new drivers as well. Plenty of fast guys in the team, but obviously Jared's been doing it for so long now, and he's so consistent and fast at pretty much every track. So it's good to, in the lead up, we can look at, I might be faster a little bit here, and he might be a bit faster somewhere else, but then, just work together and end up trying to, be as fast as each other, but work together to get that speed up.
And good to have people in the background like Jared touched on, to have Brody Kostecki and Shane Van Gisbergen in your back pocket, just sort of helping out, giving that little advice and spotting maybe throughout the night. I mean, that's really handy as a team to have that sort of experience as well to sort of lean back on, because obviously we know what they do in the real world, but they're not bad steerers in our virtual world either. So to have them in your team and in your backyard is pretty handy.
Absolutely. Brody's done a lot of setup work this week, which has been awesome. He's always throwing ideas around, and always greatly appreciate all the work that he puts in. We obviously were pretty on the money tonight. Shane obviously a little bit harder for him to do laps with just time zone difference and everything else. But the fact that he wakes up at 5 a.m. in the morning, I think it is for him, to spot every week, every round, I should say. Just shows how much he's dedicated to what we do and what he helps set up. So really appreciate all those guys that help out, and it's awesome.
Well, before you let you go, mate, well done on tonight. Is there anyone you want to thank?
Obviously new sponsors doing okay. Ryko Performance, Hybrid Racing Simulations, Brody and Shane as well. I know we just spoke about them, but can't thank those guys enough for the effort they always put in. Other guys in the team, it was really good preparing, obviously, first week for Andrew and Griffin in the team, and sucked to see what happened to Griffin tonight. But speed was there, so sure he'll bounce back at the next round. And you guys for the broadcast, the race control guys, and Madison on Peter as well.
Cheers, mate. All the best. Looking forward to see you at the next round. Until then, take it easy, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, mate.
Well, there you go, Scott. That's the team there. They've a nice little 1-2 for them, and you're now catching up with Madison Down from Trans-Tasman Racing.
Mate, Madison, difficult night at the office. I mean, you take P3 at the tail end of it, but it was just such a battle pack in between everyone that was basically from second through to about 10th. It was just every single lap, people harassing each other, some looking to try and fuel save, some trying to really make their case and push further down the racetrack. You've got to manage a race like that. That's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of made our bet a little bit there in qualifying with only managing P9, so just didn't get that first lap right and had an off track. We managed to keep it on the road there. Probably would have been in that top 5, maybe top 3. So a shame that, we felt like we had pace there, but we just missed the mark there. And probably got a bit lucky on the start. Made up, I think, 2 or 3 spots on the first lap. So Griffin's bad start definitely helped me out. But overall, I mean, the Lobs guys were pretty quick. I think we saw Jared probably had the clear pace in that one. James, I felt like I was probably closer to James and Jared, but strategically, we just weren't quite there where we needed to be.
Mate, in terms of things, it's been a difficult championship getting to this point after everything that all happened. We're now at the halfway mark, and we're on sort of this run, downhill. I say that, but next round's Monza, and then the endurance campaign kicks off. And everything starts to change when you get to that endurance. We're going to have 1,000 kilometres worth of racing between Interlagos, Sandown, and the big one at Bathurst. There's a lot of racing coming up in probably the next 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot can happen. It's probably the most difficult it ever has been, competition-wise. We say it every year, but it's not getting any easier. I mean, the other part of it, of course, is we now have the new damage model on the cars, so the attrition is a lot higher. I'm surprised we didn't see more of it tonight, actually, but credit to how well everyone drove, I guess. But it's at some of those enduros, that attrition is going to be there.
more than it ever has been, and you just can't afford a DNF in this series. And with basically scoring 0 points the way the points work, a DNF costs you so much more than even a 30th or 35th. So yeah, a lot can happen. There's still a lot of rounds to go, a lot of races to go. But yeah, I mean, difficult night tonight, but at the same time, we haven't stood on the podium for a while either. So nice to be back on the podium. Nice to have a bit of car speed. It's probably the quickest we've been in a little while as a team, actually. So missed opportunities, but also some promise as well.
Right, well, take me through sort of the next month and a bit, will you? By the time we get into Lagos, you know, we got Monza coming up next, and that's a track that's, yeah, sure, everyone will sit down and say, you know, we've seen Formula One, and it's all about everyone brings their individual car that they do to Monza when they go there. But for the supercars, it's not that simple. You do have to have some downforce to have a balanced car to hang on to the thing through the Lesmos and then through the chicanes as well. So it's not just as simple as going, we've got to take all the wing off. It's finding a balance. How are you feeling about car setup for there?
Yeah, well, we've struggled at Monza as a team traditionally, to be honest with you. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we can try and find some time to get some laps in. I mean, from a personal point of view, I've got a lot going on in the next few weeks. Actually, moving house very shortly in 2 days' time. So yeah, a whole lot of things happening in my world in that next 2 or 3 weeks, which will make it a little bit challenging. But you know, we'll see what we can do. We've also got all the TTR drivers basically. Probably, Sandman, you might have missed the invite, mate, there, but we've got almost all the TTR drivers coming down to City Motorsport Park as well. So that's in the lead up to the Monza prep. So we'll see how we go. That's enough out of the excuse book. But it's a very setup dependent track historically, and driver probably struggles to make the difference there. So tyre degradation in particular seems to be a really critical one. So many big braking zones and then acceleration zones out the other side. So yeah, it's a tough track. I'm not sure how we'll go, to be truthful. We haven't raced there for a little while now. So you know, we've learned a lot in the last few years in setup, but so has everyone else. So, you know, we're bit of an unknown. Every round's an unknown. We'll see what happens when we rock up there.
Well, I was going to say, you've got everyone in the same room. When does the whiteboard and the laptop come out and everyone starts looking at the data? No, there'll just be a little bit of relaxation, I think, that weekend and yeah, just being a real team.
No, it'll be good. We've got, you know, a whole bunch of us going out to the track there, and we'll get to see a bunch of our teammates race in the real world, you know, with Andre Macaulay-Jones and also Ando and Aaron Borg as well, actually. So there's going to be about 15 or 16 of us at Sydney Motorsport Park, so that'll be really good. But no, I'm sure that it'll be 3 or 4 days of sim racing talk. So hopefully we bounce some ideas off each other and maybe some of it sticks.
Mate, congratulations on the finish here tonight. Who are the drivers and supporters and everything that goes on that you'd like to thank?
Oh, good, massive thanks to everybody at TTR as always. You know, as I said, probably not as much prep of late, but we all jump on and have a good time together and enjoy racing together, and that's really what it's all about. So this week's been no different. Massive thank you to all of my personal supporters as well. So Virtual Racing School, Kira Pack Sheet Metal, Super Cheap Auto. There's a whole bunch of them on there. So Factory One as well. So there's a whole bunch of supporters on our car that make it happen. And for me this year, that's not only been in the sim, that's been in the real world. So massively appreciative of all those partners we've got. And yeah, pleasure to have a few good results of late.
Mate, congratulations here tonight, and I'm sure we'll see you again in the future.
Thank you.
Well, Sam, man, that is going to bring us to the conclusion of everything here at Road America. Like we said, historic track in terms of the schedule. That created an interesting race from a strategy perspective. A lot played out right across the duration of that. And 43 laps, 280 kilometres was a longer one in terms of what we're looking at. The next round at Monza, like you said, a lot of braking, a lot of getting back on the car. You've got to have a car that can handle those curbs, settles well, brakes well, drives out of the corners well. It actually takes a lot more than you think.
Hit those panels straight too, because you want a little bit of aero advantage there too. A lot of long straightaways, some fast straights. So you really want that on your side. But yeah, absolutely. Road America didn't disappoint, and already looking forward to round 7 at Monza. So it's going to be an absolute ripper.
Well, if you've enjoyed everything you've seen here tonight, don't forget to join us in 3 weeks' time as we go virtual racing. Not on that old, dusty, banked surface. That doesn't get used a whole bunch more, but it'll be for the Monza GP layout on Wednesday, the 24th of July from 7:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I want to say a big shout-out to everyone that gets it done here for the Logitech G Pro Invitational, to the sponsors, our title sponsor, Logitech, and for all of their support across the number of years we've been running this series, to the gamesmen, to Original Gamer Gear, to everyone that's come on board this season and been a super big part of the series. We thank you to all the drivers, the officials that make this series what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another round of the Logitech Pro Invitational. We'll see you again next time from Monza in 3 weeks' time.
Weekend in, weekend out, Motorsport Australia officials are making waves. From waving flags, waving cars through pit lane, or responding to a wave for help. Wave hello to new lifelong friends. Who knows, you might just make waves around the world. Ride the first wave. Search Motorsport Australia officials today.